All right, everybody, let's go ahead and call the city council meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, welcome everyone to our meeting here tonight. Per normal, we'll go through a review of tonight's agenda before we get started. I will call for any proposed changes to tonight's agenda. We'll then get into public comment. Jeff, has anybody submitted anything online or in person for public comment tonight?
Not today, Mayor.
All right, thank you for that. I don't believe we do. Do we have any responses to previous meeting?
We did have one public comment provider last meeting, Mr. Gambino. I think the response to that public comment was pretty much discussed during the meeting and towards the end with respect to the council's interest on allowing alternative treatment solutions. So I don't think there's anything else we need to cover this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We'll then get into the consent agenda. What am I?
It's going to be for about 30 more seconds, then it's going to stop.
Okay, cool.
We don't
Nope.
quite
We'll keep
know how
going.
to fix that.
Consent agenda, as our city council meeting minutes from our October 7th, 2024 meeting. Under old business, we have our Meinig Memorial Park improvements and restoration, meeting number 3 for that, as well as a police staffing discussion. Under new business, we have the Sandy Utilities Program, Sand Tech Amendment 5, Program Management Task Order number 2. And then we get into our vacant city council seat number 5, applicant interviews and appointment vote. It's a long 30 seconds. We'll then round off the evening with a report from our city manager, as well as our committee and council reports. With that, there we go. We do have to, I will call for any proposed changes to tonight's agenda. All right, I hear none, but I skipped the roll. Jeff, will you please call the roll, please?
Yes, Councilor Maiton.
Present.
Councilor Smallwood.
Here.
Councilor Sheldon.
He's gonna be a couple of minutes late, but please watch for him and we'll mark him as attended when he shows up.
We'll do that, yes. Councilor Walker.
Here.
Councilor Hokinson.
Here.
Mayor Pulliam.
Here, thank you for that, Jeff. With that, we'll move ahead with no public comment and with no response to previous public comments. We'll move ahead to our consent agenda, which has our city council meeting minutes from our October 7th meeting. Unless there's discussion, I will entertain a motion to adopt.
Move we adopt the minutes from October 7th.
I seconded.
A motion by Councilor Hokinson and a second by Councilor Walker to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nays. Motion carries. Under old business, the Meinig Memorial Park Improvement and Restoration meeting number 3. I see Rochelle online along with Kurt and some others. Tyler, would you like to get us going?
Yeah, just a brief intro here. So this is the third time you're receiving some information about the Meinig Park improvements and restoration. Staff's been busy gathering survey responses, 246 to be exact, from the community, taking that feedback with Lango Hansen to present sort of a third iteration of what those improvements could look like. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rochelle.
Hey, good evening, Council, Mayor. Thanks for letting me be here virtually. I appreciate it. And I brought the rest of the team virtually. So just real quick, Tyler covered what we were going to talk about tonight, but just to add a few things. So this is the third time where we've been in front of Council regarding this topic. And we're at the exciting stage where Lango Hansen will be presenting on refined plans based on feedback that we received from surveys, from a public open house, recommendations we received from the Parks Board, as well as previous meetings we've had with the council. So I want to just mention, while all the areas of focus are important, such as the creek restoration, the trail and ADA accessibility improvements, and the addition of a restroom, which we heard from all the groups actually. All of them are really important, but we did find that the most interest has circled around Fantasy Forest. So one of the things that we've gathered from the surveys and again from the Parks Board input, from your input, is that Fantasy Forest is such a wonderfully cherished asset that it's something that we have identified as a thing that we're going to have to do a little bit more public engagement. We've heard that it should have a wow factor, and we've actually heard quite a bit that the nostalgia behind a wood structure is rather important. So our goal for Fantasy Forest, and we'll talk a little bit more about it tonight, is to create a safe, inclusive, and a play feature that's reflective of the wow factor that is in our system currently. And ultimately, your input is going to drive the direction of the future of this park. And so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Kurt and Brian, who are here with us virtually, and I'll let them walk you through the slide deck.
Great. Thank you, Rochelle. I'm here along with Brian Martin, and we have some material that we want to share with you. And we're really excited about the next steps for Meinig Park. As both Tyler and Rochelle mentioned, we have had a public open house, public survey. We recently met with the Parks Board as well. And so we're eager to share the feedback and how the design has progressed. So Brian, are you able to share the presentation? Great, thank you. If you want to go to the first slide, what we have is just an introductory slide that shows the existing conditions. This is a slide that I think you've seen a number of times before. The next slide shows the potential path layout and the areas that we're going to focus in on tonight. So everything in orange shows the new path alignments. As you probably remember, the areas in purple are paths that are going to be removed. Our hope is that now almost all the paths will be ADA compliant. And also we're very aware of the existing forest and woodland and trying to minimize any sort of tree removal. What I want to talk about tonight are basically three areas. The first is the existing parking lot that's to the north and that general seating area that's around the stage. We want to talk a little bit about the existing parking lot that's to the south and a potential restroom and shelter. And then lastly, we want to discuss the play area and potential next steps. So with the next slide, what you'll see, it's just black and white. We've kind of reoriented the plan. So now north is up. City Hall is just north of the upper parking lot. You see the smaller parking lot to the west. And then the three shelters you have with stairs that lead down to each one of them and that general seating area. So we've brought some refined plans, which the next slide shows, of how we want to both provide ADA access, but also provide more of a gracious entry into Meinig Park from this side. A couple things you may notice is, first of all, in the areas that a lot of people park at right adjacent to City Hall, that's to the north. And if you could point that area out, Brian. What we've done is we have actually provided a pathway. Right now there isn't one, an ADA pathway that runs along the length of that parking lot. We've kept the same number of parking spaces. We still have the stairway that goes down to the shelters, but we've also to the east introduced another pathway that kind of winds through the trees and ADA access down to that central area right there. The other thing that we've done with the parking lot that's over to the west is we've kind of adjusted the amount of paving. Right now, it's a very wide area that people will drive into that existing parking lot. Many of them actually kind of drive down into the park, thinking that's a roadway as well. So we've tried to clean up that circulation a little bit by having concrete paths at the entry, perhaps some entry signage right down there. So really tried to delineate vehicles versus pedestrians as you enter into that part of the park. The other thing is near the existing shelters, there's a myriad of stairways, lots of railings in that area. And after talking with park staff and Rochelle, what we've decided to do in this area is just have a central stairway that goes down. And then as you get into the middle landing, you can either turn left or right into those shelters. So what that does is it gets rid of all the other stairs that you have, all the other railings. And what we think is provides a much more kind of gracious entry down into that seating area. There was some discussion before about, oh, do we add some extra seating down in amongst the woods and the trees? We just all felt that that would negatively impact both, I think, views onto the stage, but also potentially the trees as well. So what you see, what we've done is from the upper kind of parking lot, we've provided where it says number 2, an ADA pathway that leads down into that kind of drop off or that kind of pedestrian area at the base of the stairs. We tried to hug against the trees, not to disturb that kind of open lawn area, but we think that overall really improves the ADA accessibility in this area. So that's this kind of upper north area. To the south is with the next slide, you'll see just again black and white for the Fantasy Forest Playground. And then you see the lower parking lot down below. So what we
Hey, Kurt, I'm sorry, Kurt, just 1 second.
Yeah, and then we have a question from a counselor, and then if maybe we could just ask for a pause in between slides real quick in case somebody wants to jump in. But Kathleen, please go ahead.
Can you go back to the previous slide, please? Great. This looks fantastic. I'm just curious, like over where the number 3 is, and you have those shelters, is that path to the right coming off the main path ADA to provide access to any of those shelters?
And Kurt, can you unmute yourself? Okay, there.
No, yeah, no, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, the one that is on the far west side is ADA compliant, so you'll be able to come off the path right into that and that deck area, and then from there you'll be able to circulate kind of east-west as well with those other existing shelters.
Okay, so I'm asking about like the number 3.
Yes.
I see stairs to the, and then I see stairs on the other side. And so if you come down trail number 2 and go to 3, but continue past 3 to that biggest shelter, is that ADA right there to get those?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, that's ADA compliant.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. And there is a staircase on the far right over by the number 2, the far right 2. There's a staircase along that edge of that property there, existing, that comes down from the parking lot above, and then it kind of peters out.
Yeah, and so it's our intention is that we're going to rework a pathway from that upper parking lot, so it doesn't have any steps and it is ADA compliant.
This is wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions on this slide?
Please continue. Thank you so much.
So why don't we go to the next slide, Brian? Because this one focuses on the parking lot to the south. And what we've heard from, I think, both this body, but as well as the public, was having another restroom that was closer to the future play area, the renovations that we do within that area. So what we are showing here is something very similar to what we did for Cedar Park, in that it has both a 2-stall restroom, but it also has a shelter and the ability to put picnic tables underneath that shelter. The other thing that we've done here is currently there's a pathway on the west side of the play area, but not on the east side between the play area and the creek. So we've added an ADA compliant pathway, which is shown as number 3, that winds down and connects both to that restroom and that parking lot down below. I'd like to move on to the next slide, which is the focusing a little bit more on the play area. But are there any questions related to this slide or these improvements?
I'll just ask one again, Kurt, and that is, what are those, you know, the little brown things going down to the creek? Are those wood structures or just?
Yeah. Those are wood structures, and that was part of the original master plan that talked about strategic ways to get down to the creek, so that when we restore the creek and add native habitat, revegetation, that we're kind of focusing where people can get down there. Now, these locations still need to be studied. But what we're essentially saying here is that, you know, as the pathways that are on the east side, there may be a couple areas you can get down, and the same thing with the west side. So locations need to be studied, but that's generally what we're thinking.
Yeah, and the original intent, and this is great to have these, is just, it's not so much wood that's gonna have to be replaced or,
Yeah.
you know, the way they're kind of, I mean, they're subject to being washed out. It was
Yeah.
more kind of using some very large flat rocks, you know, stacked so that there was
Yeah.
kind of more permanent, you know, it was kind of more natural looking and longer lasting and wouldn't be subject to being washed out.
That's a really good point. They do kind of look formal right now, but I think the idea is, depending upon the grades and the contours, it's kind of feels a natural way to kind of get down there, and it's kind of a resting point. So it could be a variety of materials.
Great.
Great, thank you.
We can go ahead. Thank you, Kurt.
Okay. So we wanted to do just a bit of a refresh on the play area. These were the three play area options that we shared with you last time. These are ones that we also presented at the public house. And each one, and I think with our discussions with you and also with the public, is that there were pros and cons to each one. But when we got the survey back, which is the next slide, I think that it kind of reinforced what we were hearing both from you and then also the public, where on a scale of 1 to 5, the ratings were, 3.1 for option 1, 3.1 for 2, and 2.7 for 3. And I don't know, if I were to be really honest about things, that's probably like a C plus or a B minus. And I think the general feeling is that for the city of Sandy, we could definitely do better, and to kind of think about how we can capture the idea of fantasy forests, but what does it mean over the next 20 or 30 years in terms of creating something that's truly imaginative. So we went back, and there's a company that we've worked with before. If you go to the next slide, Brian, and they've done a number of installations. They recently just did one for the city of Hillsborough. I know that they've done some for the city of Gresham as well. And the firm is called Earthscape. And what's really nice about them is they do these really interesting wood structures that in some respects look like forts. And I think there's some similarities with fantasy forest, but they also do these custom features. And the upper right is one that they just recently installed for the city of Hillsborough. And it's a huge troll that is lying on the ground. It's all wood and it's all interactive. It's very inclusive. There are ways for kids to climb up the legs, slide down slides, and it is an attraction for really the entire region. We took a site visit there with Rochelle and Tiana and John, Brian and myself, and we as adults, we had to play on it. So we were thinking, if we were to use this Earthscape company in terms of creating a play area, if you look at the next slide, what we wanted to try to focus on was creating areas for tots, for kids really of all ages, perhaps creating kind of a specialty element, not necessarily a troll, but whether it's an owl, a bear, or Sasquatch, there might be something really kind of fun and interesting that really creates something very imaginative for the play area. And then we have those towers as well, where kids can cross through bridges from one tower to another. They can play on logs and certainly have the swing sets. And so what's shown on the right is, and I know it's really difficult to see on the plan view, but it shows all the different kind of play elements that are kind of integrated into these play systems. And if you go to the next slide, what we've done is we've actually taken some of those specific elements and showed what they would look like. And so beginning on the upper left-hand side, what's really nice about these systems is that there's ways to create some height. So you can imagine you're almost kind of in the trees that surround your existing fantasy forest. A lot of different sliding opportunities. All of these are very inclusive, and that's how Earthscape, it's kind of a badge of honor for them to create these systems that can be used by kids of all abilities. So the top two images show different towers that we could use within Fantasy Forest. The upper right is one that's under construction right now. It's actually a big bear that has slides coming out of it, which I think would be quite unique. And then the middle slides just show a variety of kind of areas that kids can hang out, tot lots, really being able to climb and have these wooden structures be very interactive. And then the bottom ones show really the same thing as well. I'm reminded as I have went through the Fantasy Forest a number of times, just the places that you can get under and you can hide. And I think this system has many of those same qualities as well. So we were excited to be able to kind of share this next step with you. What we're hoping to do is get comments from you tonight on this particular direction, and then perhaps share these updated images with the public to show how I think we've responded to a lot of their comments, and I think made something truly special for the city of Sandy as well.
Well, thank you for this. I think some of these concepts are incredible. From my eyes, are really cool. I guess question I have is we got the ratings back on our concepts, but do we know how our community feels in general about the play structure as it sits today? And the reason I ask that is I think a lot of us go into this maybe with the preconceived notion that if we go like way different than what's currently there, the community is really going to be in an uproar and push back. I think we've seen that in other neighboring communities, which is kind of what raises the eyebrow to think, well, that could probably happen here if it happened in other areas. But like, do we even ask the question, like, considering we showed 3 pretty similar structures that's currently there, are we maybe off basis in our assumption that the community wants something similar to what's there existing today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe can you go back to the survey, Brian, the one image, and I think that we've had a lot of personal personal kind of interaction with people, and then we probably got like 100 different comments, handwritten comments or comments that were digital that we collected. And I think if you look at the question number 5, which style do you think fits best at Meinig Park? I think the option number 1 is really the style that seemed most similar to what is out there right now. Option 3 was clearly something that seemed different. I think both with this survey answer, but also our personal interaction, is that people would like something that kind of captures their imagination, not necessarily duplicates something that's out there, but something that is Fort Light that has a lot of kind of nooks and crannies, some elevation to it. Those are all the things that we've heard from the public.
Okay, other questions, comments? Lori?
We're, our next public outreach for this is the 29th.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And so we're gonna take these next concepts back to the public. Is that the plan?
Yeah, Brian, can you go back to the imagery, the last slide? Yeah, the idea is that what we're going to do is we want to share the survey results with the public. So we're going to share both the survey results, but we're also going to capture a lot of the kind of individual comments that they had. And then we're going to show them how this new system kind of meets a lot of the comments that they had. I think the other thing though that Rochelle was mentioning at the beginning is that this we don't feel is going to be the final meeting regarding this play area. It's just really too important for the community and you know the Meinig Park. We anticipate having some more meetings, but we wanted to share this with people to say, well, we listened. What do you think about this new system?
Cool. I think when I heard, there was a interesting comment kind of alluding to what Stan said, was one of the people attending said, it'd be interesting to kind of take this same survey after our new park is open with the playground there, because it really, you know, people like what they already know. And if they saw, you know, what you've planned over there, Kurt, you know, it might kind of broaden their horizons a little bit. But I like this structure. I think it's, you know, fabulous looking. The only thing I'm a little concerned about, maybe Tiana can weigh in here, but you know, all the wood and the wood's lifespan, and I don't have a good handle on.
Is it wood or does it just look like wood?
It is wood. It's actually it's a robinia wood, which is it's much denser than a cedar or Doug fir. A cedar or Doug fir may last, you know, 15, 20 years. The robinia will last up to 40 to 50 years. So it's almost twice the lifespan as a just kind of a typical Northwest wood.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Black locust. So I think an interesting question would have been, and maybe you didn't do this in your survey, but what if we rebuilt the park just like it is and see where that number came back to kind of validate or invalidate this belief that we're holding on. I mean, like I personally am holding on to what we have because that's why I came here, right? And all of these start to deviate. They look new. Even this last round, I admit that yes, it has some familiarity, but it's still fundamentally very different. And I think that's, I don't know, I'm a little concerned. So maybe in this next open house, if we can maybe collect some of that, even if it's not an option to go rebuild what we have because of ADA and accessibility, it'd be nice to know where the public's at.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure that our existing, and I'm with you about our current structure, but I'm not sure how ADA compliant our current structure could be with modification. And if you made modification, all of a sudden it becomes an albatross of what it is.
It may not be legally to present.
Right. So
Absolutely.
So you end up having to change it irregardless to make it legally compliant.
But what it helps us understand is where the public's at. So you understand if you're dealing with the change, we need to help the public change their opinion of what they want, in which case what Kathleen said is very relevant. You know,
Because they don't know what they don't know.
See this brand new park, you know, and so forth.
I get concerned about, and I thought she was gonna go there, was more about maintenance of that park.
Yeah.
Long term, I was an advocate against the wood, but I've heard the community come to me and say, we want wood. I want to say I want a happy medium. I heard him say something about the different wood and how it is twice as long, but what's the price difference on it? And does the community have the money to spend on a park if it's at that rate? So I'm curious to see what all those numbers come back as.
From my vantage point, my kids are getting older. I'm never gonna go down one of these slides personally, right? So I don't know how fun it is. And I think, what my next point may not be important, because I think what most important question is for kids, like, do you want to play on this thing? Like, is this fun?
Right.
But from a sheer marketing branding perspective, the bear's awesome, man. Like, that's something that I think,
Sasquatch.
or Sasquatch,
Yeah.
or whatever, like, I think it's something.
I will admit that got my interest. That's the first thing
Yeah.
that said that got my interest.
And I'll tell you, with young kids or previously young kids, like when you go to Bend, there's like the pirate ship park. So when you have like that strong identifying
Yeah.
feature to a park, kids are attracted to it. But especially on the heels of this pump track and skate park and everything that Cedar Park's gonna do for the community. This on the heels of that with such a strong identifying like brand mark. Just from a visitor tourism, Sandy on the map perspective, I think it's super strong. Again, though, I think that needs to be secondary to like kids just having a blast.
Yeah.
Right, like at the playground. But I think it is a consideration for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to that end, on the kids having a blast, I saw a lot of the number 5 creek access things. I think that's great, but kids want to get wet. So as you're thinking about restoration, you might want to think about an area that's not going to be restored, that you make, because they're going to get in it anyway, so you might as well give them a
Well,
spot.
you just harden it, you harden it, Yeah.
Right, there you
Maybe
go.
if it's not bright orange.
Yeah. And the areas you don't want, you kind of plant Devil's Club and some other things like that.
Yeah.
Ways to kind of plant things.
Anyway,
that are-
that's
yeah.
what I'm saying, is, a few of those walkouts are gonna be great, but it's not gonna keep them out of the
Yeah.
creek, so.
Yeah.
Great.
I have one more comment on the, if we can go back to the big picture overview that shows the lower park. The lower part of the park and so some things to think about. Number one, I am concerned about funding of this and how it's going to play out. This may be something that can be phased in because trails and structure and even the facilities. So this one, I'm speaking of this lower facility, the restroom and the covered area. That might be really interesting if we could double that size of the covered area or even triple the covered area and put a commercial sink in. Because when you think about Mountain Fest and food safety and things like that, having a little more facilities could improve food safety for everybody. And also help us out on like as Winterfest grows, that could be a gathering warming area in addition to our other shelter. It's an area we could go after grants or even donations to try to expand it, but it looks to me like, I think the space is there to explore a much larger structure. How do you guys feel about that?
I thought you were going someplace else when you brought that up, but, I'm thinking about what you just said though.
Do I need to back up?
Well, it's part, so I wrote down in my notes a question just generally about events. So I'm just gonna piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Because you're talking like a commercial kitchen, whatever. I think that.
Not a full commercial.
You just said
just a
sink.
sink.
Yeah,
Just a
okay,
sink.
sure, a sink,
Because-
right? But I think like, I know we just say this, but like, how much electricity, what are the electricity needs for the parks ongoing future? Have we engaged with the Sandy Mountain Festival Committee as well as the staff from the city of Sandy that engage, and I'm sure it's all the same staff, right? But that does the Winterfest on the needs of the park. And then has like anyone in our police department sat down and looked through just on homeless camp, what are dealing with, are there key things that could be worked into this plan just from a line of sight, visibility standpoint. I know we have some very real concepts we're just trying to do right now, but I think as we go on, it would be nice to at least engage with these other groups that have such an impact on the park. And then within that, right?
Mhm.
Are there sink needs, kitchen type needs? What are the kind of needs that could possibly arise out of those conversations?
Does that sink require an ERU?
You're killing me.
Because they just said 2 toilets and then you're talking about another thing, so.
Well, I will say there used to be a sink at the gazebo.
Yeah.
And it just kind of got to be problematic and was finally removed.
That would be my only,
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea, and I get I get
Yeah.
your thought process on it
Well, it could
totally.
be under lock and key.
I just-
And it would be easier to do
I
with the
just-
bathroom
I
and
just
all
worry
that.
about,
Right.
Yeah,
So I,
'Cause the other
even under
one's
lock
just
and
open,
key,
yeah.
I'm not thinking about it for every mom
Right.
and birthday party event, but for the big events that we sponsor, it could enable some, a better food safety is really where I'm coming from on that.
and then would we run into any issues with the difference in the distance? Cause like some people would be set up super close to it and some people would be quite a distance from it.
I mean, right now, we don't have anything. They have to haul it all in, they gotta haul it all out.
For sure, I-
So I think it's an improvement.
Do we create a problem? Paul, I was just throwing a different. I'm not opposed.
And to me, this, as long as we put this in the plan, this is something you can build now, you could build later. Based on needs and funding.
Well, I would definitely support expanding the footprint of that open area. Because it can be used for a lot of different things in that area, as long as the space was conformed without taking down more trees.
Right. That's a pretty open area right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do have room. Yeah, I think that would be fairly easy to do. Yeah.
and anything covered is an advantage in the winter months, so.
Yeah.
The sink, I like the idea, I'm just, it scares me with the ERU shortage we have. Anything today.
On the concepts, if all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, like a laid down troll or a bear, yeah, I'm fixated on this thing now. If that starts to come up, I think there needs to be another community engagement in what represents Sandy the best in that structure, right? Like,
Yeah.
just for the smartest, consultant or staff member in the room to come up with that. I'd love for, people to come up with ideas and concepts from a Sasquatch to a bear to a pioneer
I was just thinking,
wagon.
the Sandy
owl.
Pioneer, for sure.
Yeah, right, and allow that to be kind of a community involvement, engagement exercise in its own, if it goes that direction.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. We were thinking the same thing, that it would be great. It would garner, I think, a lot of energy and excitement of what that potentially could be.
Cool. All right, anything else before we move on?
Just one final thought, if I can just jump in real quick. Like we've done with all of these projects, we currently, we're in the concept design phase, picking up from where it left off, and the way that we approach this, and I heard it mentioned by a few counselors, looking at it as a phased approach and funding. So that's something that we definitely are keeping in the back of our minds the whole time we're putting these ideas together. And so eventually that will be one of the things we'll be back before council talking about what this would look like. So just rest assured that we are sharpening our pencils, taking a look at this and making sure we keep that in the back of our minds, and having an idea if we do this in a phased approach, leaning on the council to help us with that approach.
Yeah, we have one more question.
Sorry, I was just thinking, if you're gonna go back out to the public and get some more feedback, some of the things that I've heard that haven't been talked about are around safety, around that Meinig Park, and visibility. So I don't know if you have any questions that you could ask during your future surveys to talk about what the community thinks about the importance of that. The people that have talked to me have talked about, I raised my kids through that park and I lost track of them more than once. So I was wondering if there's anything that we should be adding or thinking about when we're considering safety and visibility for the young kids that play in Fantasyland.
Thanks. And can I add to that, as we're looking at this chart here, one of the things that you see every time I ever go there is there's moms and dads or caregivers sitting around the outside of that. And I don't know or haven't seen, how those tables or benches and other things would be laid out. We definitely want to incorporate those picnic tables and seating areas.
Very important. Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you so much for all of your work on this, and I'm gonna mention my marriage report, but it was nice seeing some of your team at the LOC this last weekend, and thank you for everything you guys are doing.
Great. Thank you for all your comments. Yeah, it was really appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, moving ahead in tonight's agenda, we are to police staffing. Tyler, you want to start us on that?
Yeah, I'll take it off. So you'll recall that 2 weeks ago, you received a presentation from Barry Dunn, highlighting the results of the police staffing study. Essentially that indicated that the addition of 3 sworn personnel was needed to bring us up to a full staffing level. And we had some robust conversation around that study a couple weeks ago. Ultimately, the council left with a consensus that they supported the report and staff should go back, figure out a way to fund those additional officers and present something to hire and retain those officers. Since that time, Mayor Pulliam and I have spoken, and he really wanted to get this moving quicker and back in front of the council. And so that's where we're at this evening. I also threw in some information in the staff report about the IGA with Clackamas County and the homelessness community services officer that's going to focus on homelessness. Just to keep that at top of mind. That's not a sworn personnel. That would be something separate from what the staffing study was anticipating. But it is an added FTE that will be able to help with the workload of the existing police department. And so ultimately, there's some rough estimates in here on what it would cost to bring on 2 additional sworn officers during this biennium. It would be some nice feedback. It would be about $147,000 per officer to get us through the rest of the biennium. That would include acquiring a vehicle for each of those, outfitting that vehicle as needed, and then about 6 months of salary or so, because it would take, 8-12 weeks before we're able to get someone boots on the ground here. And
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Fill in any blanks?
Yeah, so I just wanted to really get this in front of council. We talk all the time about law enforcement and the safety of our community being of utmost importance and one of the most important things we face. We just had a conversation on Meinig Park. I just wanted to reference that as we go into this. We get really excited about those presentations, and we should. They're marquee projects. They're super exciting. I talk about the brand and the marketability, the fun that our kids get to have on them. They're great, they're super exciting. But we also got to list those in the overall priority of our city and where we spend our money. And the one thing that I've learned over the course of the last 5.5 years is we can get really excited and spend our funding on something that's maybe a lesser priority for us because of the excitement behind that, than maybe where we need to be in the bigger scheme of things, and the things that are truly a priority for our community, like our public safety. Hearing some of the questions and conversation from our last meeting, the consensus I got from council is that we all strongly support our law enforcement, that we all want to see a fully funded and adequate law enforcement for our community. We're never sure how to fund things, right? That's why we're here and what we're always kind of going back and forth on. And we also don't know, if we make a quick, rash decision, are we going to be able to meet those obligations that we set, in the long term? That was something that Rich had brought up. I also want to remind everybody on my gavel, it's about to go away. I'm taking this with me, you guys. You have to get your own. But I never worry about action, only inaction. Winston Churchill. So as I think about the ongoing costs in this report, there's 2 reports actually, right? There's the one we paid for that says 3 fully sworn officers is what this department needs. And then there's an internal conversation that says, actually, we may think that may be wrong. We may need 4 additional sworn officers. And then we've got our finance admin staff that says, well, if you do that, probably going to need to increase records too. So that starts to look like we're really behind. And I don't think budgetarily we can meet our obligation and meet the request of this report tonight or in the next couple of months. And I'm not asking anyone here to do so. I think there's 2 ways of looking at what we can do to make heavy headway towards meeting this obligation for our community. I think one is something that city staff put together. I don't think that this necessarily addresses what Rich was asking as far as the full-time, how are we going to meet our long-term obligation for these officer positions? And so I think that could be open for discussion for what staff presented here. I'll tell you the way I think about it. And again, I have to come into the realization that, this Clackamas County agreement to community officers, not actually a with a weapon and, right, but it does help us get there. It helps get us closer. So federal cop grant programs, right? Cop hiring programs. Communities talk about them all the time. They chase after them. They fight over them. They do press releases when they go. When they apply for these, they're 3-year programs. They pay for 3 years over the course of 5, and they pay for over up to 75% of that cop grant. And the reasoning behind that is they say, hey, if we're going to pay for up to 3 years, 75% of this, that should give you as a city the longevity to figure out the long-term funding mechanism for that officer. So if you don't like what the staff has put together, and again, I can go along with that recommendation, I would suggest to us tonight that we, as a Sandy City Council, award ourselves a COPS grant. That when you look at the staff report, the first year cost of an officer is $219,500. Second year cost of an officer is $142,500. Third year cost of an officer is $142,500, all taken off of our last meeting staff report, where it was the first year cost of an officer plus the equipment demands of that first time officer. And then there was the ongoing annual cost plus the ongoing equipment cost, right? Add those middle numbers, add those outer numbers. The total for 3 years for a new officer is $504,500. We have $500,000 in our contingency. Guys, I'd vote today to dedicate our entire $500,000 contingency to our law enforcement to get them going, to get these officers. I'll tell you that right now. I'll make that motion. But
I think you made it a couple weeks
yeah,
ago.
but if you want to do 75%, let's just do the COPS grant. 75% for 3 years, $378,375. So, where I would ask for the consideration of this council is either 209, and again, we have a new chief. We only vote and allocate funds. The other day, it's up to this department head and our chief to work within the recommendations of this report and to figure out what it takes to give us the best possible police department that we can afford at any given time. But to give our chief help in that regard, I'd ask this council to consider the staff, but they put as a budget impact. They didn't give us a recommendation. I want to recognize that. But where they say we can do 294,000 for the remainder of 23-25, that will pay for get us on track for 2 full-time equivalent and related equipment. Or knowing and trying to recognize Rich Sheldon's concerns that I totally recognize and understand, we do 378,375, give ourselves a COP grant dedicated towards making sure there's one additional officer in addition to these others that they're in the current ongoing hiring process to get. That's how I'm thinking through this. That's what I would ask this council to consider here.
Where were you reading those numbers from? What page on the report?
On the last report?
You have the numbers that you were just reading off
Yeah,
the
here, let me go.
378.
So if we go to our Sandy public agenda, packet, right?
Yeah.
For our last meeting on October.
I'm on page
7.
25, and that says staff report.
Yeah.
For police
That's-
staffing.
That's where the numbers were.
Okay,
I don't see any 300 number. in
I
it.
think.
Well,
he
no,
went
I'm
to the
adding
one- He went to the
here.
one
Oh,
from
you-
before.
yeah,
Yeah.
one to the one before.
You were using the last meetings. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I-
the-
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
thought there were
Yeah.
new numbers in this report. I didn't
No,
see-
so so I was using the meetings for the last one. They said first year officer plus first year equipment,
I
right?
remember.
Ongoing.
So just for a point of clarification, you're saying give ourselves a COP grant. We have to apply for these grants.
No, I'm not saying what I'm being facetious a little
Copy
bit,
that.
right?
Okay.
I'm saying, let's meet all these communities go after these things.
Well,
you know,
so
at a
the same
minimum,
thing
let's do
exists
that.
in the fire
Yeah, yeah,
service. It's
yeah.
their staffing, their staffing grants.
Yeah.
Is that how, because I know they work differently, and Rich, maybe you could chime in on this, because I assume you're well versed in these. Is it the grant pays for 3 years and then you pay for the remaining 2 out of the full 5-year grant, or how do the law enforcement grants work?
Yeah, To be honest, I don't have a whole lot of experience in dealing with the personnel hiring. Oh my gosh, it just made me huge on my computer. How do I take this off?
Ours too.
Oh, scary. I apologize. So we don't have a whole lot of experience because of some of the challenges that are there with those grants. There's a lot of grant reporting that comes with them and stuff. So you know, I think it's worthwhile exploring, but I think it's also going to be challenging for our community. It's an interesting concept of what that looks like. There is, but to shortly answer your question, Lori, yes, there is typically that you have to agree to that, but I'm also going to push you even further that the hope is probably, I'm assuming that you want that FTE for, you know, the inevitable future. So, you know, once that is one of the challenge with these is once these grants runs out, you still have to figure out how to pay for that person to show up to work every day. So that should answer that. I have some more comments, but I'm kind of curious to hear what everybody else has to say before I chime in and too much.
And again, just so everyone knows, and I think we should apply for COPS grants. My general point is, right, is I'm trying to address Rich's like long-term funding. What I'm trying to say is other communities have found a mechanism to give them a 3-year lifeline to figure that out, knowing they have 3 years. And just through the growth, different things in your community, you should be able to meet that obligation. Or if it goes away, and you no longer have to meet it, and you've given it to yourself for 3 years. Anyways, I've made my case.
Is this the numbers you're talking about? You can round them off.
I'll pitch in then, Mayor, if I can.
Please.
I would support more of a partial method, not the giving all of our contingency away, more in line with the 3-person rule, which I believe you said was 375,000 guaranteed for 2 reasons. One is I would hate to spend all of the money that we have for the next year and a half before we can get any more money, not knowing what we don't know. And then number 2 would be, you know, I agree. I think we need to fund the police department fully. I think we need to support the police chief. I think we need to keep our community safe, and I think we need these officers. But I do think we can do it in stages where we can hire 2 or 3 now, and continue to work with the additional things that you've mentioned with the homelessness person. That would be 4, and then we would be working on trying to get our 5th, which was never mentioned in the original staff report. So I support I'll call it the 75% amount that you brought up. That's what I would support, because it gives us an immediate relief right now of, I think that was 2 officers. Sworn plus allows with a 3rd person that you're talking to, that you put in your memo, that could come in and kind of do 2 things. So I support the 75%.
And these are above and beyond the 3 positions that we're replacing, right? So this is 3 plus.
Please.
Okay. It's going to sound a little bit like a broken record from what I brought up last time, but I don't like the idea of seed money or grant money that doesn't understand how it's going to be continued. So I want to understand the big picture in terms of how we're going to pay long term. And even if it's a worst case scenario, and there might be better scenarios out there, like maybe property taxes grow enough that we can absorb it 3 years down the road. But if we can't, are we willing to bite off the public safety fee increase that would take to keep them here? And if we're not willing to do that today, then we shouldn't be moving ahead. The second one is just one of urgency and timing. And I think, just to correct, I think we're 9 months, we're to end of June for the biennium from a funding perspective. And so that contingency does have to handle whatever is going to pop up between now and the next biennium. The new chief just barely in there. I don't feel like there's an urgency to act on this today. I mean, I do feel, and I think what you said, the whole council is very pro-police. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to argue against that. It just comes a question of the financial responsibility aspect of making sure that we don't move too quick. We let the chief get his legs under. Maybe he discovers that there's something else a little different that he needs, and he comes to us, you know, new equipment, new programs, new whatever. So I just urge maybe slowing down a little bit and then revisiting this as part of potentially of the budget committee next year.
I could find that as reasonable if the report came back for one additional officer or two additional officers, or even just three, but we have an internal that says that it may be up to four additional officers. And then we have our Tyler and our finance staff saying that that report didn't even ask about the record keeping. So I just think at a minimum, we need to make an investment to either, or we find ourselves in a similar situation as water infrastructure or wastewater infrastructure, where we don't take those little steps along the way to get us a little bit closer. We find ourselves at a true emergency situation while we're still in the midst of wastewater and water, because that's not going away anytime soon, where we have to make that next big leap.
But when's our budget cycle start?
Well,
February?
well,
So it's not that far. And then we could just roll this into the whole
but
budget
you also have
cycle.
but I'm asking for a $500,000 or $375,000 commitment today that can roll right into that and give these guys the ability to go start hiring those officers, getting them through academy, sourcing those things so that they can get them out there. And then I talk enough, but this is important to me, is when you talk about voting for things that don't have long-term funding, I would remind this council that we just voted for a library proposal that does not have any assurances of long-term funding. We did not wait for the next budget committee to meet on that. And we met those obligations, and this is for our law enforcement.
Well, the budget committee did meet on the bookmobile thing. It just, prices went up and we made an adjustment. It's a fair point though, but I don't think one not great decision means that we should do another not great decision.
And I understand what you're saying. I just want to go back to one thing, and I went back and looked up that previous report. Because I remember thinking at the time, because I wanted to say, you don't think we need more records people if we hire that many more officers? But I asked that question, and they said, we have enough staff, but we don't have enough patrol officers. That's definitive enough to me to say we need patrol officers. So we have the money to put them in today, then I have to have the trust and the faith, and it is trust and faith. And our city manager and the finance manager and the deputy to come back with a plan to help us find a way to keep those officers in play. And if for some reason that does not happen, am I willing then to make that hard decision, which you said would be to change the fee? And there's
other hard decisions. You could cut programs somewhere.
You could also cut the police department at that time staff down if you have to. So there are other decisions that need to be made.
We could cut senior services. I'm not proposing we do it, but I'm just saying.
But you asked, you wanted to know if we were.
You gotta be
ready
willing.
for that, and I wanted to let you know I am.
Okay.
I think it's that important to fund our police department today that I'm willing to take that risk because I have trust in our staff to find the funds that we need for long-term longevity of that program. But that's just, I'm a novice. I can't wait to hear what Rich has to say.
But let's rephrase that, not find the funds, charge the taxpayers. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Unless there's a grant or something, free money from somewhere,
Yeah.
we're putting it back on the
Yeah,
taxpayers.
we're gonna take from our tax funds for our taxpayers to provide for police and law enforcement. Yeah, we're gonna do
Yeah,
that.
so that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Rich.
Yeah, so this is where I said, I don't know, this is a little bit too quick. I was kind of hoping we could have a little more time to talk, and so I'm not really, I don't want to say no, and I don't want to say yes tonight, because I'm not really comfortable deciding that. And some of my logic is this. One, we have a changing in police leadership there, that I think he needs to explore what his staffing model even looks like. Currently, the last executive that we had changed the model to where there's no more command staff, and we have a group of sergeants that are now asking to be unionized, which is fine. But I also think that there's extreme value in having a counterpart especially in a small agency that you can discuss. Now, whether Chief Husky shares that feeling or not, I don't know, but I think we need to give him some time to figure out what kind of a staffing model he wants and what kind of leadership he wants at the agency and discuss that. So there may be some additional changes that come down and increases in cost with promoting a command staff structure. The second thing is, I know our union contract, well, potentially we're going to have 2 union contracts if the sergeants vote to unionize, which was the last legislative thing, will need to be negotiated. I know that Sandy Police Department is one of the, was someone trying to chime in or was that just my speaker backfeeding?
I think it was just your speaker.
It's a little bit feedback. Sorry, Counselor.
Okay, no worries. So I know that Sandy PD is, I will just say, behind the 8 ball on compensation packages. And so I think we're going to have to make up some room moving forward, which again, will have an additional cost. And I know we can't even begin to speculate what those numbers are, but it's just a lot of thoughts these are my thoughts that I'm having at the moment. And so I can't say what I know those are going to look like because both sides haven't shared packages and that I do think there's an increased cost coming down the road eventually there. Further, we have these funds and there is equipment costs and I guess I'm not opposed to purchasing equipment and stuff. But before we fully equip our officers, I don't know where the Sandy Police Department, they're hiring 3 currently. I don't know that the Sandy Police Department, which I believe has, I think please Tyler, tell me if I'm incorrect because I may be lumping the sergeants in there. Is it 12 patrol FTE? Is that correct?
Yeah, we have 16 sworn altogether. That includes chief and 4 sergeants. So that would be
11 FTE then.
Yeah.
I don't know that with 3 recruits potentially coming out into training in the very near future, I don't quite understand the urgency to do this when I don't know that they fully have the, and then a lot of those recruits are also new. I'm sorry, a lot of our staff is fairly new. I don't know, and again, I would love to hear from Chief Husky on this. Are they equipped to take more than 3 recruits and adequately provide them training to hit the road?
And clarify, that's 16 sworn positions. We
Correct.
don't have 16 sworn
No,
officers.
correct. We have 16 sworn positions in the budget
So
currently.
there's 13 positions, 3 open.
Right. And so when we use the word emergency, right? So we have 3 open positions and then 3, but we're being told we need to fill 6. So you can make the case based on the report that we've been told that in a law enforcement office that has what do you just say? 13 budgeted,
No, we have 16 sworn budgeted
16.
total.
right? We need to based on this report, we need to staff up 6 minimum.
No, we already have 3 coming.
Career coming.
Right, but no,
We already have
they're not coming, they're in the hiring process.
When did
They're
they
in the hiring
start?
process. Yeah, they're on the way.
Yeah, that's
I
what
believe
I'm saying.
one
We have
just passed
16
background
budgeted. We need
today.
to have a 19.
The other 2 finishing medical and psych. I don't know the exact timeline, but that could be the next couple weeks, unless you have an update. Sergeant?
Correct, one just has to do their medical, and the other one has a psych, and the other one's still finishing up backgrounds.
Okay.
So assuming they all pass their background checks and all that, would they all be on staff working by Thanksgiving?
No, and that's one of the challenges is let's remember that we have to send our officers unless we get a lateral and unless we get a lateral that is already certified, we have to send those officers to 16 weeks of training down at the department down in Salem. Then they come back and they're going to have an additional RFTEP is 17 weeks. I suspect it's right around that same time. I think Manny could probably sorry, Sergeant Herrera over there could answer that question as far as the way Sandy does that there.
It says 3 or 4 months, Rich.
Yeah, so you're looking at 8 months before we get that. My point to this is we have some time. Now, what I don't know is, this is one of the things I do know. Sandy PD doesn't have all the body cameras that they need. They definitely don't have all the body cameras for this. There may be some other absolutely crucial equipment needs that we could use this money and fill that void for them right now and save ourselves the headache down the road. And I just don't know what those needs are. I want to be really clear. I want to make sure that we're not only are we staffed adequately, but that we are going to be in a place to where we can adequately compensate and take care of our staff when this next contract comes.
Here.
Because that's important as well. So again, I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes. If you were to make me take a vote tonight, my vote would be no, but it's because I want to have more conversation about this. I think there's a lot of really interesting funding mechanisms. I've shared some of those with Tyler. I would love to see some numbers so that we can come there. I stress on how I hear some members in the room have said in the past that they refuse to raise rates in the water, but we're going to actually consider raising the public safety rate. I struggle with that when I think that there's other ideas out there. We just have to have a little bit more of a plan. And I think a little more time could get there. Just 2 weeks just wasn't enough to wrap my head around that fully.
Agreed.
Well, I want to express first a little frustration that we've had this, and not at you, Rich. I'm talking just from staff preparation and getting ready for this decision. We've known for months that we have a staffing report coming, months. And it's been highly speculated for months that this report is going to recommend additional officers. So the idea that we're acting like we've only had 5 days to 2 weeks to prepare for this decision, it's just not.
I think you're discounting.
It's not accurate.
I think you're discounting something very important
Okay.
that Councilor Sheldon mentioned, which is Chief Husky's time in the office to get his feel for things. And whether that's 2 more weeks or more, I don't know what the time is. I'm with Rich. I would love to have him here and talk through those needs.
Well, for one is, try to pick my words carefully here.
Oh, shoot me down. Go for it.
No, it's not you. Yeah, Chief Husky probably should be here.
Well, I gotta say that he's with me at the moment, and they're at a very large networking event. I want to say that I have talked to Husky here. By the way, I'm in Boston at International Chiefs of Police Conference. Husky has been attending training, looking for exactly what we're asking him to do. He has attended training on, small to medium-sized agencies, grant funding. He's made that a priority for him. I would say that, and so I'm going to defend him at that point. His not being here for this particular quick turnaround, I think what he is trying to do is exactly what we're asking him to do, and this is a great opportunity that would have been a huge loss and a miss for him had he not been here.
Yeah.
Well, and real quick, because
No, you're
Kathleen did
good.
want to get in
No, you're
here,
good.
but let me just quickly finish a point, which is, it's again, nobody is asking or trying to instruct Chief Husky into what officer to hire or what kind of officer to hire. We have a report in front of us that says that we have multiple sworn officer positions that we need to fill. We're in the process of hiring 3, which means that as of today, what is today? October 21st, 2024, we are off of the recommended report, 6 officers behind what we need. You heard what Rich said about the 8 months. These folks are still months behind even coming on. At a minimum of saying, we want, of these 3 officers, we want to give you the financial backing to start this process to recruit a 3rd in your own vision, Chief, not ours, in your vision. When we know how long it's going to take to fill it and where we already are, I think it's more than reasonable. I really do. I'm going to go to Kathleen and then we'll go to Lori.
I haven't had a chance to really talk with Chief Husky yet. I hope to get that chance. He's almost up to his 90th day, you know, he's almost been here 3 months. And he really hit the ground running, and I've been impressed from what I've heard so far. I did kind of hear something about the fact, and again, I'm more interested in what he thinks about all this, and I don't feel like I've had the chance to hear it directly from him. What did he think about the staffing report? What did, you know, what would he want to be doing with this? I'd like to see what his other needs are. It's possibly it's the sworn officers, but I would like to have the chance to kind of just have him put a little bit of a thumbprint on what, you know, rather than us trying to guess what the needs are. All that said, I agree that there's a need for additional funding, and I'm willing to, you know, recommend, you know, what I heard, the number that was in the staff report talked about, what was it, 200 and something, $294,000 to get us through 6 months. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 2 vehicles that would need to be purchased and then 6 months of salary.
Oh,
2
okay.
officers.
The other thing that what I don't understand, but I so this may not be accurate, and I apologize, you know, officer, you might be able to kind of clarify for us, but as I understand it, when you get these new police officers, if they aren't laterals, you have to ride with them and, you know, double up for quite a bit. And so my concern is that if you're doing, you know, if I don't know how that works, but if 3 of your sergeants are now riding with 3 of the new people, and then, you know, you get 2 more, you know, you don't have enough people to go riding with everybody, and everybody's doubled up, and there's fewer shifts to be able to cover, and, you know, kind of a snowballing thing. And I don't know how you deal with that, or if that's even an issue, but can you speak to that?
So usually what we do is.
Meinig, do you want to, or Sergeant Blair, want to come up? Just the microphone will pick up your voice.
I was told I didn't have to.
I know, you're.
Hey, by the way, Manny, welcome. You didn't know this was coming, did you? Sorry.
Sorry.
So usually what we do is like with these officers, if they pass everything, and you know, they all pass their psychs, medicals and so forth, we'll have 3 bodies. And then usually what we do is, we look at other agencies, including the sheriff's office, Gresham Police Department, that put on like special training, some academies for their new hires. And we put bodies into those too. That way we don't overload the officers as far as having, you know, somebody in their car all the time. And it gives, like, out of the 3 potential officers, 2 of them are laterals, so they have experience. 1 is a brand new body.
Okay.
So the person with no experience, we're probably gonna end up sending them to like some of the academies, some of the training that Gresham puts on for new officers, some of the training that the sheriff's office does too. And then that way they get that extra training before they go to the academy.
All right,
So,
that's helpful. Yeah,
yeah.
great to hear that 2 of them are laterals, so
Yeah,
not everybody's, you know.
knock on wood,
On a
hopefully
training
they'll
bike.
pass it. So,
Okay, great. Well, what I would also just add to that is I am interested to know about, you know, what other needs they do have at the police for funding, whether it's body cameras or just what Chief Husky wants. I am willing to kind of take 294,000 of our contingency and allocate that to the police department, you know, for their needs, whatever he decides to do. And maybe that's just going ahead and starting, you know, in hiring 1, and then we figure out how to fund that in the next budget year. Whether that's a fee of some sort, an increase in the safety fee. I would like to see us do some public involvement in that, and not just, I mean, I feel like last time it kind of just got put in place without a lot of public discussion, and I don't really want to do that again if we don't have to. But I do support the funding. I don't support spending the whole 500,000 because I also think there might be some other urgent needs from some other departments that we probably need to hear about. And I think it'd be helpful to have a kind of a list of urgent needs for the next 6 months to get us through, or something like that. And you know, it's possible if there aren't urgent needs and then we decide to allocate the rest to the police for carryover to seed this future, you know, this intended hires, that's even better. So yeah, that would be where I'd sit on it. I could make a motion to, you know, allocate the 294, but go ahead.
So you started this conversation tonight with that we weren't necessarily gonna make a decision. We wanted to look at things, right?
Right.
So
Who did?
you
You
did,
did.
Oh, no,
Yeah, you
no,
did.
I always planned on making a decision tonight.
that's.
Play the record, but
Please
But
do.
that's
I
okay.
think my conversation
but-
with Tyler,
but
you
it's-
probably attest.
but it's
pretty
okay.
frustrated.
Regardless,
Yeah.
I would like to explore options of looking at grants and some different funding mechanisms, because I don't think we have enough information to make a good decision tonight. I absolutely support police. I absolutely want to fund these FTEs. There's no question there. Even if we do give almost 300,000 of our contingency tonight, we don't have a mechanism in place to fund them beyond 6 months currently. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, that would be identified throughout the budget process,
Correct.
which we're.
So I don't feel that we have enough information. I think there's a lot of things that can be put on the table. And a lot of different things. So what I would like personally would be to have this come back to council, looking at what all of the potential funding mechanisms are, so that we can see a clear picture of what we're actually looking at.
so I'd like to move that we table this item until November 18th. Gives 1 month. That would require a second.
I make a motion that we move ahead with the allocation of 200 as cited in the staff report
94.
of 294,000.
You don't want to call for a second first,
And I would ask for a second for my motion.
but not mine.
I'll second that.
Which one are you seconding, Council?
Yeah, which one?
Oh, let's see.
I still can't find the
I feel
numbers.
like we just run out of words.
So
I can't either.
I can't,
Well, let's pull up the staff report.
please show
after
me, because I can't even see those numbers yet.
this. So the
Usually
staff,
not
so
that.
today's staff report for the October 21st meeting,
Page 25.
right? So we're gonna pull up the staff policing
Page
study.
26, Counselor Meinig.
Oh, sorry, I just went to the link. I-
25.
There's absolutely no reason to
Yes,
move
so
ahead with this today, Mayor.
Well,
Zero
the
reason.
294,000 numbers on page 26, that's what I was trying to highlight.
Mayor, I'm sorry, were you asking me to pull it up or were you?
I'm looking at it.
He's looking.
Okay,
So this is the 2 officers and the,
But what it really is 294,000 being allocated to the Sandy Police Department for Chief Husky to move towards hiring the recommended officers. It's not telling him to hire 2 additional hired officers. It's telling here, here's 294,000 to go start the hiring process, because we know it takes so long, but you have 294,000 in your next budget to start that process today.
I'm on board with you, but I would feel 100% comfortable if Chief Husky was sitting right there saying he agreed to that.
And he could be
So-
here on
so
November
we're not
18th.
I don't know why we have to wait a month to get Chief Husky back here to answer that question. I would be open to tabling it until next meeting so that he can answer that question, because if he says that's what I need, which I think he said that at the last meeting. When Barry and Dunn gave their presentation, I can't review my notes to say he said that, so I want to hear him say that. I'm all for giving him the
So-
300,000.
I move we table
I'd like
this
to
till
wait 2
November
weeks.
4th.
Is that 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's the next meeting.
I'll second your motion.
All right, there's a motion on the floor in a second for a date certain of November 4th for a policing decision that will have a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think it has less to do with Husky being here and a lot more to do with an election day on Tuesday, why we're tabling it to that, but.
I disagree.
But we shall see.
Well,
Completely
It's the
disagree.
night before the election, so.
I didn't even think about the election.
He's
I don't
not
think,
thinking
I'm certainly not, I'm not on the ballot, but I think,
He's not thinking
I think
that.
some
I
councilors
just want
certainly
us to
are.
say
Completely
he wants that.
well, I'm not. Completely disagree on that.
Okay, moving ahead to new business, Sandy Utilities Program, Stan Tech Amendment 5, Program Management, Task Order number 2.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight with Dick Talley, who's the Vice President and Area Manager of Stantec. He's available if there's questions, and Ryan Wood, our Superintendent, is in attendance as well. The decision to be made tonight is whether to authorize the city manager to amend the contract with Stantec for the Sandy Clean Waters and Sandy Drinking Water reinvestment program management services to provide the next installment of services. As council is aware, the city's undertaking two major infrastructure programs for our drinking water and wastewater, encompassing multiple significant capital projects over the next 5 to 10 years. To manage these extensive programs, the city engaged Stantec via an RFP through a contract that was signed on February 6, 2023 at the council meeting. To provide control over the budget, especially for the drinking water program, as we hadn't obtained a number of funding mechanisms, we wrote task order 1 to limit the extent of the services for 12 months. And that was to provide us with a little bit of control over the program management as we understood the scope and budget of services. Stantec has been enormously efficient, and actually the 12 months of services were actually able to extend to 18 months. But at the end of this month, the budget for both those programs will be ended. And so we're here tonight to ask for the next installment of services, which have been planned all along. After deliberations with Tyler, Jeff, as well as our City Council Oversight Committee, we're coming to you tonight for a large ask, but these are two separate programs, drinking water as well as wastewater, and not for 1 year's worth of services, but an approximation of 2 years worth of services for each program. And this is partly because we're going into a really big push of design and construction. Push up. The program management services for Sandy Clean Waters and drinking water reinvestment will include the following: water program implementation, wastewater program implementation, funding and financing plan, including identification of additional grants, permitting strategy, program management development, procurement execution, and program management support. For key considerations, scope and fee management, this second task order will provide services from November 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2026. The city has control over the pace of the spending rate, and the scope is flexible, allowing the city to deploy the slate of professionals as needs arise. And I think that's a really important point. We are better defining, better able to anticipate what will come the next couple of years. But when surprises pop up, such as the recent effluent pipe break that occurred in June, we received a letter with multiple requirements from DEQ and EPA, and having access to this large range of consultants allows that team to mobilize and respond quickly and efficiently. So there's a lot of flexibility built into these services, and also controls through myself, as well as Tyler and others as we administrate this. So this is not a blank check for spending. We do have controls over the pace. In terms of debt financing, these are funded through, there's a number of different loans. I won't read all of them for the drinking water, but these, the drinking water services are funded through the various Business Oregon, as well as the Safe Drinking Water Loan. Debt financing for wastewater, these services are primarily allocated to the WIFIA loan that was recently closed, as well as some to the state revolving fund. In terms of program execution, we have assembled an amazing team of professionals, including Rob Lee, Leeway Engineering Services, is continuing services to the city. They provided the owner's rep services for the first series of phase 1A for the Sandy Clean Waters program, as well as Water Dude, who's been helping us execute the stress test, manage our Veolia contract. And I have a list of the number of accomplishments that this team has been able to do, especially with regards to our drinking water and the schedule pressure the team is under to rebuild our drinking water system. And
Jenny, can I ask a quick question? Of
course.
On that particular topic? So like Rob Lee, for example,
yes,
is he getting paid with this contract or is that a separate design? Or is he an engineer that's designing stuff and that's getting paid through the company he works for?
so previously, Rob Lee had 2 contracts with the city that are now expired. One of them was for design for a collection system rehab, because he does that, that's his specialty. He also had separate contract for owners representative services. So if you remember, he was doing some of the funding and financing and council oversight meeting updates. With phase 1A ending, as well as many of these more treatment focused projects, Rob Lee's company didn't really have that expertise and they were pretty small. So that's why we selected Stantec. They're much larger. And so currently the city employs Rob Lee as a sub-consultant to Stantec.
So this money would cover his services?
Some of his services, though we are doing fewer collection system because we're kind of through that piece. But we do still have access to Rob and his really excellent team.
And one other quick question, you know, on your personal services thing, what's been confusing to me, it's probably, I shouldn't even say that. It's not confusing. You've got task orders and then you've got tasks. Are they the same thing or are they different?
They're different.
What?
They're different.
Okay, I kind of figured because it was, yeah, but they're called the same thing. So because you have like task 8 and I'm like, gosh, we're just funding task 2 and we're up to $7 million and there's task 8. So, yeah, you know,
Yeah, I think we could have
okay.
We could
used
have
a
picked a
different
better-
word beside
Okay.
task,
Okay,
but
well, that was confusing because I thought, yeah. So those is task 1 through 8 kind of in task order 2?
yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, task
Phew.
order could be interchanged with professional services agreement
Yeah,
with a
Okay.
scope of work, and this is the
I was
second.
just reading through stuff and getting
Work.
confused. Okay,
Or
that really
phase,
helps me
yeah.
understand.
Yes, that's
Okay,
good point.
that's it. Thank you.
A really important point is there's not too many cities that are in the position Sandy is, where we're undertaking major rebuilds of 2 utilities at the same time under the schedule pressure that we are. This takes highly qualified people that are difficult to find, and we just don't have the staff or resources to continue the expedited schedule we have been delivering these past few years to meet the consent decree requirements. If you also remember, we have about $7 million of ARPA grant funds that expire in September 26, as well as the bilateral compliance deadline for our drinking water, which is coming in less than 3 years now. We just can't continue to make the progress on all of these things, including the negotiations and execution of this program, without the support of this company. And I will say also, there's not enough engineers, there's not enough contractors, there's not, enough program managers. So, if we were in a recession, I might be concerned this is a large contract. People might be leaning on projects or billing them, and that is just not the case. They're spread so thin, working for a number of different clients. And I think that is evidence from 12 months of services actually turned into 18 months. People are busy and they're being efficient because they have a lot of different work to do. So that would certainly be a consideration of mine. The proposed budget amendment, task order number 2, includes approximately 22,600 professional hours for both drinking water and clean water program services. Of this total, $2,264,757.48 is allocated to the Sandy Clean Waters program, planned for the next 2 years of service, and $2,650,731.12 is allocated to the Sandy Drinking Water Reinvestment Program. Sandy Drinking Water Reinvestment Program has slightly more. I figure you may wonder why. That is moving ahead rapidly, and so we have construction management inspection services will remain on Stantec for that as well. Staff recommends that council authorize the city manager to sign the task order 2 amendment with Stantec for continued program management services.
Jane, the only question I have for you is this still remaining within the same scope budget we originally forecasted for the stage?
Yes, and I have some answers for that. So for the drinking water program, we have baselined that at $7 million. I'm sorry, $70 million. And to give you some context for construction management and program management services, those range, typical rule of thumb is between 12 to 26%. It depends on the city and the exact nature of the programs. Currently, for water, with this addition, Stantec will be at about 5.6% of the program, and they're forecasting a finish of being within 8%. But as the Council Oversight Committee knows, I do have quite a bit of management reserve tucked in there for unknown unknowns, which will crop up. So they're being extremely efficient. In terms of the wastewater program, what we have been aiming for is a program of $134 million. And of that, this total ask right now is 2.5% of that program. And again, I would think that we would be aiming for around, again, the normal range is between 12 and 26%. Not sure where we're going to end up, but my budget right now is holding for about 20% overall of that program. So just to emphasize, we are within our overall budget of the program, and we do have mechanisms to control the spending.
Perfect. I have a motion. There are no more questions.
Great.
Council, I move to authorize the city manager to enter into agreement with Stantec for program management professional services to increase the original budget not to exceed from the amount of $2,320,007.45 to $7,235,496.05.
I'll second it.
Perfect. There's a motion on the floor from Counselor Mayton, a second from Counselor Hokinson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays. Motion carries. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Jen. Moving ahead to the vacant city council seat number 5 applicant interviews and appointment vote. Tyler, you get started, please.
We took a break.
Yeah, we can do that. Why don't we go ahead and take get back in here at 8:40.
Thanks, man.
Corey, are we missing, who do we let Tyler get back into the room here?
Good time at LSU.
That's good, yeah. Yeah, we get rained on a ton, Benji came out.
So Rich, how's the time zone?
Nope, there's just me,
Getting tired?
Tyler, and Tyler.
Yeah, I kind of am.
That was good.
I'm sorry.
Well, you're on the East Coast, so it's what,
Grandma.
almost,
Grandma.
I'm gonna,
11?
I'm gonna go, my flight, we wrap up tomorrow, so, in the evening, I'm gonna go see, we're gonna go see the game, opening Celtics game against the Knicks, where they're gonna raise their banner, so that'll be pretty cool tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think he said Boston?
Boston.
Yeah. So he's 3 hours ahead of us.
Don't need to get on.
It's almost midnight for him.
Yeah, so let's get moving here, guys. This is, we're gonna go, we're reconvening after a recess, our city council meeting. I'd like to, do a quick introduction. We're starting off, the portion of our meeting to fill, council vacancy, for a very special counselor, former counselor, past counselor, and Carl Exner, who did incredible work and had an enormous impact on this community. So whoever is the lucky or unlucky person that's chosen for community service for our wonderful city is filling enormous shoes. So thank you very much for your interest in serving our community here on City Council.
Thank you.
Yes, tonight is an opportunity for us to hear a bit more about all of you and information you provided in your written application. It will also be an opportunity for the council to ask you any follow-up questions that we may have off of this. Each applicant is provided up to 20 minutes for your interview. So just a reminder, as you're answering these questions, you only got 20 minutes. So if we don't get to the last one, we don't get to the last one. So please do keep that in mind. There are 5 questions. But of course, I think the final one is a remaining as a closing statement. The way we're going to start off is I'm going to ask the first question, and then Councillor Hokinson will ask the second question. We'll go around. Councillor Walker will ask the third. Councillor Smallwood will ask the fourth. Councillor Mate will ask the fifth, and then Councillor Sheldon will ask the final question. These are public meetings, and you guys are all our neighbors here in Sandy, and you're a resident. So I am not legally allowed to ask you to leave the room while we conduct one-on-one interviews. So I will request it, as it may be more comfortable both for you individually as well as for the group of applicants when going through the Q&A. What the requested process would be for candidates to remain in the hallway. And then our city recorder, Jeff Aprati, at the appropriate time will come out and ask you to come and join us. You'll come in and sit down. We have the questions that we will be asking laminated in front of you, so there won't be any surprises on that. I believe, 7 times 3 is 21. I graduated from Oregon Trail School District. Okay. So that's only 1 minute. Actually, you have roughly just under 3 minutes a question. That we go through. Even though there's only 6 questions. So I might have screwed that up. Yeah. There's a, yeah, it's great. So with that, if you wouldn't mind waiting in the hall, and then do we have a first applicant?
So I thought we could just go alphabetically by last name there.
Okay, so it looks like it's you, Mr. Patrick Bernard. Bernard, so start.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Will we get a new one of these each applicant?
Yeah, I only have one.
So,
Right on it or not right on it?
gosh, that was an oversight on my part. So I will get some new ones printed out for you.
One for each applicant.
Yes.
Great, okay.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and take care of that. I'll sneak out and do that once we start.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, welcome. First, I just wanted to start with another thank you. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering. It's not always a very thankful job. Sometimes it is, though. It really is a rewarding one, though. But thank you for stepping up for your service. We went through instructions in front of everyone. I get to ask the first question, and that is, why are you interested in serving on the Sandy City Council?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I have watched over TV a few times, so I kind of have a sense of how things go. But to get to the answer to the question, and I'll go from pretty much what I wrote, but my wife and I grew up in the Oregon area, west side of Portland, and we skied a lot at Mount Hood. We've been through this town countless times, had my share of Joe's Donuts. And it just was always a quaint town. And so when my wife and I decided to make a move, this was very high on our list in terms of a city we wanted to move to. We found, we were just talking and found a beautiful home on the other side of the freeway here. And it's where we call home, and hopefully our last home. As we lived here, you get to understand the city a little bit more, the dynamics of the city, what's working well in your eyes and what's maybe not working so well. And I thought, instead of complaining about the things that weren't working well, why don't I pitch in and try to help out? And that's simply what it comes down to. I want this to be the most livable city that it can be, and I want people to be clamoring to get in here, and for lots of reasons.
Thank you. Don.
Oh,
Question 2.
question 2. How have your skills and experiences, both professional and volunteer, prepared you for serving effectively on the city council?
Yeah, great question. So I have, over the last, business for over 30 years, I'm retired now. But I've spent the lion's share of my professional years managing teams, typically around sales and marketing, branding, project management, product development, and again, always as a leader. And what that has allowed me to learn and bring to the table is strategy, strategy development, setting of goals, objectives, the strategy to achieve those things. And then very importantly is the plans and the actions to carry them out. That's the piece that is often missing. We all have big ideas. We don't always get around to achieving them because those last two pieces are missing. And the other piece is accountability. One of my old bosses used to call me the velvet hammer, which is his way of saying, you're nice, but you're tough to make sure things get done. Again, I mentioned product development. I think, as I put in my write-up to you all, a product can be a city. And that's what I look at Sandy is like, what's the best product we can put forward? And I think there's ways that you can approach that. I use an analogy, if this was a car, I'm kind of about the outside of the car and the interior. I know the engine is like, you don't have a car unless the engine works. However, it's the people driving through this town. It's the people thinking about living in this town. It's that first impression that you get. That's the piece that I'm really interested in helping with. And I think my background in product development, project management, et cetera, really lends itself to that.
Okay, what do you see is the most significant challenges facing Sandy now and in the future? And what do you see as the city's most significant opportunities?
I'll just the last part first. And I think the opportunity is to create this brand that is Sandy. I don't think that's a novel idea. I think it's been discussed here. And I think about places that I've been to that I just think are fantastic in our own state here. One of those is Pendleton. I go to the Roundup most every year, and I love what that city does to attract people and to make it a fun place to be and spend money, leave dollars behind. The other one is Sisters, Oregon. We had a family home there for decades, and I love what they've done to attract people and to have a thriving but small community. And so those are the things that I'm most interested in. I think where we need some help potentially, and again, I don't know all the infrastructure or what's going on behind the scenes here today on these things. I'm sure there's many things, but the downtown corridor vacancies is a big concern for me personally. I know there's a lot of conversation about growth and bringing in new tax dollars, et cetera. I'm a big believer in fixing what you have or optimizing what you have before broadening and going out even further. That gets into just growth management. And I know a ton of that is going on here, just listening to some of the conversations going on, whether it's the police force or water treatment plants, et cetera. That's a huge piece of the growth management. I've already mentioned Sandy brand and image. And then the other one is, and this is maybe my own, I'm the guy who sits at the top of the little turnaround here at the Arco station. It hits my horn when they come in at 50 miles an hour because that's my way to go home. But traffic is an issue. And I know that's been discussed as well. So those are the things, they might seem some of them superficial, but I think those are the things that we all see as residents of this community and as people passing through this community.
All right, please share your understanding of some of the most significant projects and programs currently underway at the city.
Yeah, I will confess, I don't have a deep understanding. Again, know that, we have been, trying to fill vacancies in the police force. That was discussed here tonight. I know you've got a new police chief. I know that's been in the works. I know the water treatment, facility has been significant. I know or understand anyway, I don't know how much I really know about this, but some of the space that's available down by the Fred Meyers and the intersection there, bringing in big box stores, potentially really improving not only tax dollars, but jobs for locals. Those are the things that I'm most aware of. Beyond that, I have not dug very deep.
Thanks.
Chris.
My turn now. That's Patrick. What was the one thing you would most hope to accomplish during your time on the city council? In other words, what is your top policy priority in life?
I would focus on economic growth. I would focus on bringing in those right kinds of companies, the right mix of companies that again makes this an attractive place, not only to live, but to come and spend your dollars. And I think to me, that solves a lot of other problems, right? You get those dollars coming in, you create a place that people love, that solves a lot of problems. So that would be the answer.
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
On, number one, question one on wanting to serve on council, but it also pertains kind of to your answer to question number 10 on the application under commitment. It was an honest answer. And thank you for that. It was just the way in which you're going to be able to engage in your service on council. You mentioned being recently retired. Congratulations on that. Having a spouse in the travel industry, and it's a priority to travel. It's will be a priority for my wife and me as well. So just if you don't mind exploring that a little bit more on how you think that could possibly impact your service on council, and we can with full eyes towards we can do remote and everything else, but it was just wanted to revisit that a little bit.
Yeah, Mayor Pulliam, again, I wanted to put that in there because that is truly the one thing that gives me pause. We do travel a lot, my wife Katie and I, we travel globally, and that's where, folks who are sitting on the East Coast and dealing with time issues, in fact, my last job I was sitting in Tel Aviv while I was interviewing in Colorado. And so I know what that looks like and how difficult that can be. I'm up for that. I just want to make sure that if I'm gone more than the average council member, that's going to be okay as long as I'm present, remotely, because we will be traveling a fair amount.
So I guess, I'm sorry, I don't mean to belabor it, but
No,
I guess
please.
is that the commitment then, right? Is would even during these travel opportunities, you would prioritize, the Zoom virtual presence at a city council meeting?
Yeah, what I would envision, and my wife and I have talked about this, is we would certainly try to plan around, the meetings. But when that wasn't possible, is to do everything possible to be present remotely.
Okay.
We have flexibility. There are certain things that will come up where it's like, no, we have to do it at this time. But I think those are fewer and far between. We pretty well control our schedule, and most of the time when we're gone, it's less than 2 weeks.
That helps me. Thank you.
Is it appropriate? You tell me if I'm wrong, but or would you think you would be out, not available physically 10% of the time, 50%? I mean, I'm having a hard time quantifying what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, good and fair question. What part of my answer to that would be my wife still works full time. She has to be present, even though she's in the industry. She has to, go do her job. Now as someone in the industry, they have a fair amount of vacation. So I'm hard pressed to put a number on it, but I would think I could at least relay that during the dead of winter, we're probably gone, I don't know, 10 days cumulative. In the summertime, it's probably double that. And then there's just spot things that we do from time to time.
Okay, so it's not like you're gone all the time.
No, it's like I'm flying down to Florida and living for, 6 months at a time, or going to Europe for 3 months at a time, or even a month at a time, even though I want to, but.
Fair. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And Rich, you have the final question.
All right, well, thank you. Please use the remaining time to provide a closing statement on why you are the best candidate to fill this position.
to be blunt, I don't know that I am the best candidate. Some very fine people standing out in the hallway right now that may be a better choice for you all. What I can say is I know my intent. My intent is to come in and help make this the best city that I can be, to work with the other council members. And I'm big on teams, by the way, and I know this is slightly different than the way a company runs, but team environment has always been hyper important to me. But I think I work well in that kind of environment, and yeah, my heart's in it, and that's and I bring 35 years of business experience in running projects and developing products and starting companies. And I think all those traits, experiences would lend themselves.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And then Jeff, we bring in Mr. Breams. Is that how we're doing this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You reminded that our heads on my beat.
Thank you.
I would assume
Oh.
speak before we get to that, when we start the interviewing, but yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm not sure it's all.
That one, sure, yes.
That's good. I guess I'll give Rich yours.
There you go, Rich.
He's got a long way to go to get those ones,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Or at least that's how we did it last. Yeah. Maybe, well, maybe later. Welcome, David. Thank you for your application and volunteering here to take part on the city council in our community. I also would like to acknowledge that this isn't the first time that you've stepped up in public service for our community. So I want to thank you for your previous service as well. As I indicated when you were in here earlier, we have 20 minutes. That leaves about 3 minutes per question. Each counselor is going to ask a question. I would say that Counselor he's not here. Sheldon has the easiest one because it's just vouch for yourself. But I'll start the first. Why are you interested in serving on the Sandy City Council?
So Sandy just adopted a 50-year plan, and I like to help implement it by sustainable growth, things like affordable housing, proper resources, our law enforcement being, a number one interest of mine. Proper use and regulations of the SDCs. So our utility rates don't skyrocket. I mean, I've been reading a lot about that in the new construction that we've got coming here, and our utility rates are already up there, and I don't want to see them go up any higher. Infrastructure growth for the necessary infrastructure, and to make sure, especially with the SDCs, to make sure we don't outsmart ourselves and make it so further constructions don't want to come here. I mean, obviously we need growth, but we also need sustainability too. So we want to keep that, I'm going to use the laws of justice and keep it, the scales, level, so that way our prices are where they need to be and the contractors still want to show up.
Number two, how have your skills and experiences, both professional and volunteer, prepared you for serving effectively on the city council?
Guess I never really thought about that question. Currently, right now, I'm a board member on the Sandy Parks and Recs department. I like being there. I have learned a lot about volunteering for large cities or medium cities. I'm shocked every day about the prices of what it takes to actually, get things done. Like our last meeting, I actually proposed that we build some kind of cover over one of our basketball courts. My son and I, we love to play basketball, but 9 months out of the year, it's pretty much unusable for us. And when they came to talking about it, I learned that it's about $500,000 to build a cover over a basketball court. And so, needless to say, my jaw dropped a little bit. community, to going out to the community and talking with the community and helping. I'm sorry, repeat the question.
So, yeah, I'll even help you out. In your resume or your application, you talked about the importance of sustainability. Maybe you can expound on that as far as your skills, interest, and experience. That's really what we're trying to tease out. It's what you bring to council, you know?
So currently, right now, I'm yeah, I have one. Yeah. I'm a private investigator and I contract out with OPDS on the Indigent Defense system. A lot of people believe that we're just there to push the sick, the homeless, and people that, you know, can't afford attorneys through the system and get them out of our ways. But most of my job is helping them find resources that I can also use to help find grants, help find funding, you know, and resources that help a small town just like I live in here. I can't tell you how many cases I've gotten where I've received a thank you letter in the mail from one of my clients because they were able to turn their lives around because of the resources I helped them find. And you know, that does, you know, touch, you know, a piece of my heart when I get those letters. So, I mean, I believe that the resources that I help find for them, I also can help find different types of resources to help my town.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, what do you see as the most significant challenges facing Sandy now and in the future? And the second part of that is, what do you see as the city's most significant opportunities? So what are the significant challenges and significant opportunities?
So I think, you know, and given today's meeting, I'd say our significant challenge is our police force. In 2008, I believe we were taking our first vote to build our high school. And we built that high school to plan out Sandy's growth in the next 30 years. I don't understand why we don't plan our policing staff for 5 years, 10 years, instead of year by year. So I mean, that's a challenge for us because, you know, I agree that we don't want 6 brand new officers coming in all at the same time because that's an overload. You know, just as an employer myself, that's, you know, training 6 brand new people all at the same time, that's a lot. But we definitely need to look at, for challenge wise, we definitely need to look at fixing our traffic control. I mean, that's, you know, I'm on Facebook at least once a month talking about being stuck in traffic and, you know, sitting there and, you know, my undesirable inability to take the back roads because I don't like them myself. But so I mean, I would say that's definitely our challenge. Our opportunities is growth. Though I hate it because I do love our small town. I grew up here. I've raised my kids here. I also see that time for opportunity is now. And if we don't grow and we don't do something now, then we might miss the train.
Well, thank you. All right, David, please share your understanding of some of the most significant projects and programs currently underway at the city.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna touch the biggest one. That's our water treatment plant. And I mean, not only is that something that's been hindering us for, I want to say a little over 20 years now, because it's been a can that's kept getting kicked down the road. It's also stopping growth of the city as well, because we can't build, we can't, you know, we're getting very little permits to expand, kind of like the guy from our last meeting, where, you know, he's wanting to put 40 full-time people to work right here in the town of Sandy. That's a lot of money for the town of Sandy. You know, and we can't give it to him. You know, that's definitely a that's definitely, you know, something that we want to look at. And so with that project, getting that up and running, getting that running and underway, then you know, it helps Sandy go. It helps somebody grow, sorry. And then I know we're tackling 2 different utilities at the moment. One that I'm fairly fond of is actually SandyNet. I think we need to put more resources to SandyNet and make it bigger and better than whatever it is now. I mean, we're already fiber, but I mean, it can be so much bigger than what it is. So
Thank you so much. Mr. Meek?
I get question number 5, David. What is the one thing that you would most hope to accomplish during your time on the city council? In other words, what is your top policy priority and why?
So I joined the Parks and Rec in hoping to make a change in the activities for our children. My kids are getting older now. They're not so much going to the parks and sliding down the slides. My role on the Parks and Rec is the sports coordinator per se. Sandy is, I want to say, one of the only cities in the area that in like Happy Valley, you know, all the Clackamas County areas. We don't have our own sports complex. All of our sports fields are controlled by the Oregon Trail School District, and they're extremely strict on who uses them, when they get to use it. I remember I was the coach and the vice president of Sandy Cal Ripken when COVID hit, and they completely shut us down. They wouldn't even let us on the field wearing masks so we could weed the field and maintain the field. So when we did get back out there, we were able to, you know, at least start back up. I remember on an average year, we break for our break, and it takes us less than a week to de-weed the field and get the drying agent down and everything. After COVID, we literally had a team of about 100 people out there, and it took us almost 2 weeks to completely soften back up the field, get all the weeds back out of it, you know, and do it. And that was a lot of resources for, you know, a league. And the school district, they didn't care. They said, nope, you're not coming on our property. Even grown adults. We weren't even talking about the kids coming out there and helping us. We were talking 3 adults to come out there to rake the fields, and 1 for each base, and they wouldn't even let us touch it. And I think that Sandy needs to look at that and actually get a sports complex and do something to make it so our kids can get outside, even if it's raining out. I mean, we rain and snow all the time. You know, we need something that the city controls.
Councilor Sheldon?
Thank you. So please use the remaining time to provide a closing statement on why you are the best candidate to fill this position.
I can't say that I'm the best candidate to fill the position, and I can't say that I'm not at the same time. I have the availability with my work schedule and being the fact that I own my own company and I contract myself out. I have the ability to say, hey, no, I have a meeting at this time. Like I said, I grew up in Sandy. We moved out when I was a kid. I think I was 10 or 11, and I moved back here to raise the kids. I mean, I've been in Sandy. I know Sandy's issues. I know, sorry. I know Sandy. I love Sandy, and that's where my heart is. It's where I plan to retire. And I want to do nothing but help the city and help it grow and be sustained.
Thank you so much for your time this evening and obviously for applying for this position. Let's see what happens. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't envy them. It's hard.
I know. I just
Sorry.
thinking the same thing. It's like,
Yep.
the
It's
stress.
very stressful.
Yeah.
Hello, Wendy. How are you?
So good, thanks. How you doing?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you.
Can I sit? Or do I need to?
Yeah, please.
I don't need to do
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
formal.
Yeah,
There's
we're
no
sitting,
bowing.
yes,
Like a
yes,
courtesy.
please don't.
Please bow.
Bow.
For the photo, do a bow.
Next time, Britt, next time.
Yes. Well, welcome, and as
Thanks.
always, thank you for volunteering and bringing forward and service to our community. It means everything to us. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, 20 minutes, about 3 minutes per question. All of us are going to each ask a question, starting with me. And mine is, why are you interested in serving on the Sandy City Council?
You know what? It's a great, great city. This is where we're raising our kids, is where we chose to raise our kids twice. And but with my husband and I, we decided that, you know, this is where we want to be. So we want to make it the best it can be. It has incredible things, incredible reasons to be here, incredible people that volunteer and that serve continually. And we would love to be part of that legacy of volunteering.
Thank you. Don.
Scribbling, sorry. How have your skills and experiences, both professional and volunteer, prepared you for serving effectively on city council?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I wrote quite a bit on all these things. Louder?
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote quite a bit on all these things. But everywhere we've moved a lot. We're here to stay. And everywhere we've gone, I've had an opportunity to serve in some sort of capacity and sought out these opportunities really to serve. There's a broad spectrum of things that I've done, and in all the positions that I've been able to volunteer or be employed in, is that a word? Yeah, be employed in. I've really taken to heart what the people around me needed and wanted, and not necessarily what I could bring to the table, but how I could best serve in the capacity that was needed.
Thank you.
Great.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to ask this because of the distinguished gentleman who sat here for so long. You have a bachelor of, you have a Bachelor of Arts in History. Sorry, I misread that as an arts degree. My apologies.
That's all right.
I'll retract the question. I'll hold it for later.
I know where you were going.
Yeah.
I also know where you were going.
Kathleen, please.
What do you see as the most significant challenges facing Sandy now and in the future? And what do you see as the city's most significant opportunities?
Sure.
Biggest
So
challenge and opportunities.
thank you. So the challenge for sure is the infrastructure, is wastewater and drinking water, and how to pay for it. Right. That's obviously the biggest challenge, and it's pretty big. But I'm confident in the people that are in place and the people that I see wanting to be in these positions, that will figure it out in a way that's not going to make it impossible for the people that live here to continue to live here. The second part was opportunities. I think we're missing an opportunity in our main drag. I think we have so many beautiful historic buildings and historic sites that are a little bit underutilized. So I think one of the opportunities we could have is to utilize these historic things, these historic sites and homes and buildings, and to bring more tourism to our city and revenue for businesses and all the other things that go along with that. So that Sandy is not just a place you stop, or for Joe's Donuts, even though Joe's Donuts are amazing, but you stop and explore on your way up the mountain and back down. This is really nerdy. This is like scary.
Right.
It is.
That's, I commented on that while you were out of the room. It's pretty, I don't envy you guys. This is, I'm sure, very intimidating on some respects. But I've got the next question. So please share your understanding of some of the most significant projects and programs currently underway at the city.
The one that stands out is wastewater. My understanding is that the moratorium was put in place because of the three basin rule, and that trying to think of the correct wording, the runoff into Tickle Creek in the May to September, or whatever that is, that we it's too much. That's a simple word. So a moratorium has been put in place until we can figure out a different way, or a way to utilize the nursery or utilize other things to make it so that we can, these words are hard. And to make it so that we can have more development, and we can send our wastewater away in a way that the state is going to find acceptable.
Thank you. Chris. Number 5.
I got the last big one, almost last. What is the one thing that you would most hope to accomplish during your time on the city council? In other words, what is your top policy priority? Why?
Aside from wastewater and drinking water, obviously, I know that Carl was big on arts, and I think bringing more community art to our town would be another way that we could bring have tourists stop and stay, have a little tour through town. I noticed that Estacada recently has a little tour where you can stop in and see there, and it would be so cool to do something like that here. We've got a great start, but I mean, art's not super expensive, and I think the investment would come back huge dividends for our little touristy town.
Thank you.
Carl would be proud.
I hear him.
Rich, final question.
Thank you. Please use the remaining time to provide a closing statement on why you are the best candidate to fill this position.
I think anybody that wants to serve in this position is the best candidate. I think we see what you guys go through, and it's not pretty at times. The amount of negative comments that you have to try to look past online and in the community, because they don't sit and watch and see what you actually do. They don't see the hours of research and study and time. And, there might be a 2-second blurb on Facebook or whatever. And all of that to say, I love this community. I love what it represents. I love how close it is to the mountain and the skiing. And my husband regularly surfs in the morning and skis in the afternoon. I mean, it's pretty difficult to find a place like this, and we feel super lucky to be here. But I want my kids to be able to be here too. I want my kids to be able to afford to live in this community. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks. I want to thank you for attending the recent city council meetings. It was nice to see, somebody who is interested in it and attending and finding out more about it. So I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Thank you. I wouldn't have felt comfortable applying if I hadn't sat here and physically seen what you guys do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you do.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. All right.
Thank you.
See you. Next up is Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson's first name again? Right? Mike.
So just sit there, please.
We should be following up all these questions. Well, if you're not selected, would you be willing to serve on, fill in the blank, right?
The problem is, it's always a gotcha question, because you almost feel like you have to say yes when you're up for the, I don't know.
Well, at least the invitation, that's the key.
Well, welcome, sir. Thank you for.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And yeah, thanks for submitting an application of service to our community. As I mentioned earlier, we have 20 minutes. We have 6 questions. Each counselor will go around and ask a question, starting with me. It leaves about roughly 3 minutes a question. My first question is, why are you interested in serving on the Sandy City Council?
Well, we moved out here in 2017 from Northeast Portland. We love it out here, and I'd like to see it stay about the same. Like to have a nice, safe community to live in, and whatever I can do to help that happen, I'd like to be able to do that. This is a good community.
Thank you, sir. Don.
How have your skills and experiences, both professional and volunteer, prepared you for serving effectively on city council?
Well, I'm a retired mechanical engineer. I've had a lot of experience dealing with major capital improvements. In my working experience, I've managed $1 million capital budgets, had a lot of responsibilities with environmental issues in the facilities that I worked with. And a lot of maintenance responsibilities. And from a professional standpoint, I approach problems not from what I would call a gut reaction, but I want to review possible solutions and don't react. I try to gain information and then usually I'll sleep on something before I make a decision, and I'll know the way to move the next day. There are times when you have to move quick, and I do, and I have to, but I'd prefer to take things slow and steady. I've not had a lot of civic or no governmental experience. My only civic, I guess, experience has been when my kids were in school, being involved in the budget committees at the high schools that they were involved in. And that's really all I've done from a community standpoint.
Great. All right, the third question is, what do you see as the most significant challenges facing Sandy now and in the future? And what do you see as the city's most significant opportunities? So challenges and opportunities.
Well, the challenges, as I see them, are using the limited financial resources to accomplish the tasks that need to be accomplished. Listening to your discussion tonight about the police department kind of drives that home to me. You've got a finite financial resources and infinite amount of opportunities to use those resources. And I see the city council as having to guide the ship. But they need to take a listening ear, and guiding the ship is what the community really wants. It's while there are 6 council members, there are 30,000 plus members of the community that need to have an opportunity to express their viewpoint also. And so it need to be, in my opinion, this council needs to be responsive to what the community wants, not what the members of the council members individually want. I think that making sure that you utilize the resources and don't try to overgrow. Expansion is great, but you can't expand beyond what your facilities allow. You've got a sewage system that has a certain capacity. You got a water system that's got a certain capacity. Utilities of all kinds have certain capacity. You have to maintain a balance between using those facilities and the growth.
How about opportunities? What is the most significant opportunities?
Well, the opportunities, I think, the opportunities are driven by the community. I think listening to what the community wants will develop the opportunities that the city, that would best benefit the city. There's a multitude of ways that you can go, multitude of things that you can do. And I think that listening to what the community really wants, I think is the best way to move forward. And that's the opportunity. The opportunity is the citizens.
Thank you. Lori is number 3. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Please share your understanding of some of the most significant projects and programs currently underway at the city.
Well, I see several expansions currently underway. You've got several park projects that you're working on. You've got a significant wastewater project that you're involved in and a drinking water project. Lots of balls up in the air and hopefully they're all caught at the right time and at the right place being able to utilize the resources available to accomplish what needs to be with all of those projects. And then you throw in the services that the city has to provide with police. I don't know how involved the city is with the homelessness issue. There are a lot of stakeholders in that, and the city needs to be a part of helping to develop whatever answers can be developed for that significant problem. City can't solve it. It's got to be a multitude of players in that game that's going to solve that issue. So.
Thank you. Chris?
Michael, your question number 5 for you. What is the one thing that you would most hope to accomplish during your time on city council? In other words, what is your top policy priority and why?
Well, I think I've already kind of said that. I think my top priority would be to listen to what the community wants and then try to react to that. You're not going to be able to do everything that the citizens want to have done, but you're going to need to choose wisely the things that would be of the most benefit to the most people. You can't satisfy everybody all the time, but you can satisfy some of the people some of the time. And I would hope to be able to do that if I were chosen to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Sheldon, final question, number 6.
Awesome. Thank you. Please use the remaining time to provide a closing statement on why you are the best candidate to fill this position.
Well, I don't know any other candidates, and so I can't speak to their qualifications or their capabilities or abilities. All I know is me. All I know is what I'm able and capable to do. I think I listen well. I'm not sure my wife would agree to that, but I think I listen well. I think I try to gather as much information as I can before I jump. And I usually don't try to jump further than I think I can safely go. I think that I use as much common sense as I can. Common sense is sometimes not utilized too well, and I try to use common sense as best as I possibly can. I would just pledge that if I'm chosen, I'll be where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be. It's not a good thing to say you'll do something and then not do it. And so I just pledge to you that if I'm chosen, I'll do what you ask me to do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thanks for your application for city council and taking time with us this evening. Go through the process tonight and see where we end up.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Are we supposed to stay or what? What do you
Yeah,
want to
feel
have?
free. We're gonna have one more question. Then we'll ask you probably all to come back into the room for our
Okay.
deliberation.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good evening, guys.
You as well.
You too.
You getting paid to photograph? You getting paid to photograph?
No, you're in a reasonable one. Yes.
Welcome, Brandon.
Good evening,
Appreciate ya.
councilors. Good evening, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for putting together your application, submitting it, and putting forward for service, community service to our community. It's really meaningful when people step up to do that, so thank you. I outlined a bit of the process when you were in the room earlier this evening. We will have 20 minutes. We have 6 questions here. That allows approximately about 3 minutes a question. We'll each ask one, starting with myself, ending with Mr. Rich Sheldon, who's online this evening. And we understand this is kind of nerve-wracking. You don't have to be perfect here tonight. Just try your best, and we'll get started. First question, why are you interested in serving on the Sandy City Council?
Well, people often look at city government and they fixate on this issue or that issue. That's not uncommon. So I want to bring people together to work together. I think that that's the most beneficial thing for everybody, for the citizens of Sandy. And with that said, I want to bring a focus on the best possible outcomes for us, and not just contingencies or things that can go wrong. For me and my family, and this includes my wife, 3 children who are 4, 9, and 14. The main issues for us are culture, infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life. And we'd like this to be a place where our kids would want to grow up as well. And maybe they'd come back home after school, or perhaps maybe they would go to school here one day. Who knows what the future might hold, but they have to decide that for themselves as adults. So I'm getting involved with the city council because I want to ensure their future and the future of citizens of this town, that it's cemented in the plans and actions that we're taking today. Sorry if I'm kind of slow looking at the page here. I did type out everything that I wanted to say, so I wanted to be very accurate and precise about it. I didn't want to stumble over it. So I've read the comprehensive plan and took some time this past Sunday walking around Central Business District, otherwise known as C1. The reason why I took my wife out is because I love her, and we had breakfast at the Ant Farm. And after that, we just took a look at some of the sites and conditions of downtown, because I think it's important to get an idea of what's going on in our city right now. And, there's a lot of places in America that have like commercial for lease signs everywhere. And this is one of the things that we want to avoid on Main Street America, and especially in Sandy. We need to figure out how to promote jobs and how to not hinder them. So that aside, there's some other things I was noticing, just like sidewalks, ADA stuff, the condition of the concrete, being able to walk across the street, and that it is very pedestrian friendly. And, there's a lot of places that aren't. I definitely feel safe in Sandy walking around, but, there's a lot of improvements that we could do. One of the places that we stopped by, we talked to a shop owner. Her name is Miss Stratton. She's she was a teacher with Oregon Trail School District, and she's one of Ember's teachers. She told me that Grandma's Daycare that received 12,000 in tenant improvements, the old location where they were previously located, the landlord had not helped remediate mold issues. And I think that's a big deal. I mean, obviously they moved, but it's not uncommon to have deferred maintenance to cause commercial properties to fall into disrepair. But I think that we need to kind of set the bar a little bit higher in the city as far as what we expect if people are going to be on Proctor and where everybody can see them. We want to see those stores not have for lease signs, and they should be in a good condition. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really kind of stepping up here and stepping out about it. So as a council member, I'll push to make sure that any unkept properties that generate complaints are put on notice to create a plan for improvement. I think that's reasonable. It's a good first step. Now, the goal is not to punish struggling businesses. If they're having a business plan, we can work together and figure that out. If we are trying to keep Sandy a place where we're going to continue to do business, we have to have some care, and it may be possible that these kinds of properties are going to get rezoned into high density. I mean, that is an inevitability for some of them, but not all of them. I'm gonna take a
We've
drift
got
here.
several other
time.
questions.
Yeah.
We've got 5 questions, 4 other.
Do we need to move on to the next one?
That might.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you can cover some of this stuff in other questions because it's right on.
For another day.
That was about 5 minutes for reference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next question.
So number 2, how have your skills and experiences, both professional and as a volunteer, prepared you for serving effectively on the council?
Okay, I'm gonna have to set this paper aside here because I spent way too much time on the last question. So I'm an accountant. I work in a tax department for what's formerly Schnitzer Steel Industries. Now it's called Radius Recycling. It seems like everybody's rebranding now. But one of the things that we do a lot of is like environmental remediation and planning for projects. And I'll give you a good example of that. Like one of them is 100,000 square feet concrete block where you do water containment systems. Now, when you were talking to the woman that was sitting over here about the engineering for the water treatment, it made me realize that, these are the kind of issues that are going to come up repeatedly. Somebody's going to, say, are you monitoring your water system? How much are you discharging? Are you abiding by the 3 basin rule? What can you do to not discharge during this half of the year? And there are some options. One of them would be like trying to attract a big data center that could use recycled water. I think that would be a smart idea. They're very energy intensive, but on the other side of that, we need somebody that's going to take that recycled water from us. How am I doing on time here?
You're okay.
Okay. Okay, so basically, I work in a manufacturing industry. So there's a lot of tax research that goes into this. I'll spend time with Thomson Reuters and trying to figure out like where does manufacturing start, where does it end, and things like ship loading and dock repairs. And there's a lot of nuance to every single state's rules. So typically we'll start with definitions if we're trying to figure out what something is and how we can make an argument around it. So I always like to kind of start there on a project and then kind of work my way into the finer details. One thing that I did want to point out, and can I?
Please finish the thought. I'm just trying to help you out so you can get to all the questions.
Okay.
Please. Yeah.
Oh, no, we can move on.
Be sure. More than willing to
Well,
hear
so
you out.
one thing I was going to point out, I noticed that we use a lot of acronyms here. That's something that I would suggest that maybe we put like a glossary or definition terms in front of certain things like projects, like for example, ERU. A lot of people don't know what that means. So just as kind of like two-way feedback, maybe that's something that I could offer to you guys that we could, make a little bit more accessible for people to understand when they're reading some of this stuff.
That's a great point. Thank you. Kathleen.
Yeah, I have that problem when I read the water, wastewater, I have to Google the SCADA or what was I reading?
SCADA.
Yeah.
SCADA.
The third question, Brendan, is what do you see as the most significant challenge facing Sandy now and in the future? And what do you see as the city's most significant opportunities? So challenges and opportunities.
Boy, I always look at everything as an opportunity. The population is forecasted to grow by 7,788 people. And the opportunity is to figure out where we're going to get all those housing units, because it looks like about 79% of those are single family detached homes. But as you know, the state of Oregon has done away with that zoning of single family homes. Now you can build a single family home, it's just difficult. So it'd be like a duplex or something like that. So I think when we're just looking at the big picture, the mix on housing and how we can support more people that are coming in to live in Sandy, we really need to think about what that mix looks like and where we put it. So about 5,000 residents commute out of Sandy for work, and I am included as one of them. So 2 days out of the week, I'll be in Portland, and one more day out of the week, I'll be in Hillsborough, and then I'll work remotely. So I do think that we need to attract jobs here that are higher paying. So think about like, high tech jobs or, maybe even more infrastructure jobs or an engineering firm. It'd be nice if that engineering firm was right across the street from us, because then we could talk and check in with them, things like that. But I'm I'm not trying to fixate on any one thing with that. So currently Sandy has, sufficient land to accommodate demand for commercial employment in the Sandy urban growth boundary, but, doesn't have enough to accommodate industrial. So where do we go with that? I think another idea could be possibly some annexation. I know I'm probably going to get laughed out of the room when I say this, but we have a neighbor that we kind of consider part of Sandy. It's the Boring community. I know this didn't work for Damascus. It didn't work through like 10 or 11 mayors, but maybe one day we'll be a, how they have the Tri-Cities area? Maybe you're going to laugh. Maybe it'll be the Bi-Cities area.
Better than the boring cities.
Better than the boring cities. Sandy can be boring too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that if you're going to have industrial areas, you need to make sure that they're placed in the right spot. I think in the western part of the city where that's already zoned, that is a good fit. So we should think about if we're going to expand that one part that we need, in the urban growth boundary, that we fill that need in the correct spot.
Wonderful, thank you.
Got about 9.5 minutes left.
Okay.
All right.
Number 4, Lori.
Okay, excuse me. Please share your understanding of some of the most significant projects and programs currently underway in Sandy, and you've already kind of touched on some, so.
Oh, where to start, right? Everything's a project. So one of the most important projects that's taking place is the membrane replacement at Alder Creek Water Treatment. So I think that like a doubling of our capacity in the next 10 years would probably be a good idea, but I mean, I don't know exactly what that timeline looks like compared to our population growth, but it's definitely going to be something where we're going to have to replace everything rather than just maintain it, because you can only kick the can down the road for so long until you have to do something different or do something, significantly larger than what we can currently handle. The other project that I find personally interesting is the skate park and pump track. It serves the recreational needs of the community, and we need that, especially for people that don't have backyards. That is a requirement. It's one of the goals in the comprehensive plan. Our daughter skateboards, so I want a place for her to be able to play. And our son's best friend's dad, he skateboards too. A lot of us do. And I think that making this a good place to skate, to have something that we can be proud of in the city would be very beneficial to all of us.
So you skate?
I don't skate.
Okay.
I only inline skated a little bit when I was a kid and I almost broke my hand.
Yeah, that's my experience.
I skated, if that's even fair or a thing.
Thank you. Well, I want to get a ice skating rink, so. Chris. Yeah.
I got a question for you. You said ERU, that's equivalent residential unit. only
Thank
'cause
you.
I was on the
I'm
planning.
gonna write that down.
To the equivalent residential.
All right. Equivalent.
So the question I have for you is, what is the one thing you would most hope to accomplish during your time on the city council? In other words, what is your top policy priority and why?
Top policy priority is to make sure that we're working for the citizens of Sandy and we're not log jamming things like getting 3 more officers on board, because it's going to take a long time to get them trained. And public safety is a #1 concern with a growing population, because I've heard numerous stories of people saying, well, I called 911, I got put on hold, or, I asked for somebody to come out and look at this vandalism, and they said, call your insurance company. This kind of thing can happen more and more as time goes on. So we want to make sure that we're very timely about onboarding officers if we have an opportunity to do that.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Rich was number 6.
Sorry.
Rich? Oh, there you are.
There I am. Can you please use your your remaining time to tell us why you are the best candidate for this position?
And thank you for joining us remotely here. I really appreciate it. And by the way, your head is not too big. Yeah, I know you thought that it was, but. I live in Sandy and I really care about the community here. And when I saw that somebody couldn't finish their term, I immediately wanted to step up and help out, because that's the right thing to do. When there's a need, you fill it. That's what I was taught growing up. And it doesn't matter how hard the job is or how long it takes or what that learning curve looks like for you. If you have an opportunity to better yourself and to better your community, then you should do that. That's the kind of person I am, and that's who I plan to be here.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. We'll go through the process to see where we end up here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and go let the interviewees all back into the room?
Sure. Brandon, you're welcome to stay or whatever you.
I'll sit over here though.
Score these?
It's optional for you. I'm gonna collect these, but you don't have to score. It's up to you. There's a lot of discretion.
I didn't know how you were gathering the feedback.
I balance for you. You're right back.
Yeah, we'll go over that. We're not adding all the scores up.
Right, I didn't know
No
if I'd
map.
be able to write that stuff down.
No map.
Like, ratings and shit, so all this stuff is public record.
Exactly.
So Mayor, I do have those paper ballots that the council requested. So can you pass those out now?
Yeah, please do.
Councilor Sheldon is going to use email to send his.
Wonderful. To you directly?
Yes. Does everyone have a pen?
I do.
So these are personalized ballots. You'll notice there is a signature line at the bottom.
Thank you.
Notarized affidavit.
No rank choice.
Never rank choice.
Well, it's not vote, it's not, legal in Oregon.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as the discussion, before we even vote,
Please. Yep.
I just want to say, all of you, thank you. I know Mayor said it earlier, but it takes a lot to put it out there and come here and listen to us, like, and I hate that we look physically down. That's terrible. Because we don't look down, we're actually looking up to you. And whatever happens here, if this seat isn't yours, please consider volunteering, making a difference, because there's so many opportunities everywhere in our city. So,
I would second all of that. Thank you, everybody, for submitting. Very much so. Is there any other, please don't feel obligated, just want to give an opportunity. Was there any other discussion items or anything before we go to a vote and process these?
It's just one vote, one X
So if we need,
on our ballot.
that's right, please vote for one applicant. If no one receives a majority, which will take 4 votes, then we can go to a second ballot or a third, whatever's necessary. I'll just remind the council that per open meetings law, I will need to collect and read the votes aloud. But the paper ballots will allow you to vote without influencing each other's decision.
Jeff, I think, will you confirm that you got my email?
I just received it. Thank you, Councilor.
While everybody's voting, I'd like to thank you guys all for coming as well. It's not an easy task to sit here and interview in front of a bunch of people like this, so kudos to you.
And for staying up late with us.
Yeah.
Don alluded to it. There's only one seat, and that's just the reality of it. But I really, I feel like from everybody, I really heard some interesting ideas, and it was a hard decision. I would really encourage. There's a lot of boards, advisory boards to this city that I would really value everyone's opinion, and would just really encourage that.
Not trying to rush the council, just trying to do that.
Gotta run that from your supercomputer.
Scantron 2000.
We have an independent observer.
So a majority vote will take 4 votes, just as a reminder. Counselor Mayton votes for David Reams. Council President Smallwood votes for Patrick Bernards. Counselor Walker votes for Lindy Hanley. Oh, I skipped Counselor Sheldon, I'm sorry. Counselor Sheldon also votes for Lindy Hanley. Counselor Hokinson votes for Lindy Hanley. And Mayor Pulliam votes for Lindy Hanley. So Mayor, would you have the majority?
All right, congratulations, to the Hamley, and thank you again to everybody who came forward and put your names forward. Thank you so much.
And condolences to Lindy.
Yes. And thank you very much.
And Lindy, we'll be in touch shortly with the next steps.
Thanks. Thank you again. Thank you.
Swear in tonight.
I thought we did. She did that.
Jeff, would you please go around and collect everybody's notes?
Sir, thank you, Mayor, for the reminder.
There you go.
All right, feels weird that that was part of a normal city council meeting. We'll move forward. Report from the city manager.
Yeah, I ditto what you said about it feels weird being part of a regular
Yeah,
meeting,
we're
'cause
right
now I
back.
feel like I'm
Yeah.
out of sync. So just a few things. We do have several positions or terms ending on some boards and commissions. Planning Commission, Parks and Trails Advisory Board, and the Sandy Net Advisory Board that we'll need to put together some interview panels for. We can certainly use the same makeup of council members for those interview panels as we've done in the past, if that's easiest, or we can talk about a different approach. Mayor, I don't know if you have any strong feelings about that one way or the other.
Which committees it for?
Planning Commission, and previously for that one, we've used Counselor Mayton, Counselor Walker, and Mayor Pulliam. We have Parks and Trails Advisory Board, which was Counselor Walker, Counselor Smallwood, and Counselor Exner, so we'll need to appoint a different person, obviously, for that one. And then for the Sandy Net Advisory Board, last time we had Counselor Sheldon and Counselor Hokinson sit on the interview panel.
So I like all those still, unless there's objection. I would do Counselor-elect Hanley as the replacement for Carl Exner on the Parks Committee.
Okay,
Great.
I will reach out shortly on scheduling.
Wait, is that Parks, right?
That was Parks for that one, yep.
Are you doing the swearing in next meeting?
Yeah, I just got that question from Counselor Hokinson. My thought, and Mayor, and feel free to overrule me. My thought was if we do the next meeting, she can invite her family and anyone else who.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
Well, hold
And it
on.
won't be
Let's-
10
I
o'clock
gotta-
at night.
I'll feel obligated to show up in a suit. Which one is that?
That's the fourth is the next one.
Okay, great. But the meeting, I want to be the most casual. All right. Okay.
Two more
Yeah,
things, briefly. So just wanted to do a quick recap on the League of Urban Cities conference that was last week. I won't steal your thunder, Counselor Hokinson, but I'll just say that it was a time well spent in Bend. That conference is always good for a variety of reasons, but I think the most beneficial component is just the networking and hearing from other city managers and other city councilors what's going on in their community, how they're handling those situations, what creative ideas they have. And so it's just a really good use of 2 days with peers and other elected officials to brainstorm and commiserate and just see what else is going on throughout the state. And then last but not least, Winterfest lighting has begun. They started hanging things in the park today. So just letting you know how long of a process that really takes, right? They start early. Lights will be on the Thursday before Thanksgiving this year. So I think that's the 22nd of November, if I remember correctly. So we are full steam ahead, Winterfest planning and execution right now. So thank you in advance to the Parks and Rec staff that are working daily to get that up and running. It's a heavy lift, but we're excited to get it done again.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up, Don.
Well, I'd just like to say thanks to all my fellow counselors who left me at League of Oregon City all by myself, me and Tyler. We had a good time. We did. It was good. Connected with Jordan. And,
Oh, nice.
yep, it was,
Fantastic.
gave him a little grief, but it was good. Actually, this time around for me, the league was very different because I feel like I knew what to look for. When I was there the first time, it was just kind of deer in the headlights, sort of spent half my time waiting for a bus or going on a tour. This time I just stuck around and I talked to people, booths and vendors and things like that. And it was good. I came back with a list of stuff for Jeff to include in our newsletters, from fire safety to bike safety to e-bike things that we've been talking about a little bit, but maybe we could beef up our site, do some co-branding, that sort of thing is kind of where I was thinking on some of these opportunities. One of the most interesting things is we talked a lot about short-term rentals, and it's certainly one of my goals if I'm reelected to pursue that. Even if I'm not, I'll be here advocating for it one way or the other. That the council put together a short-term rental policy, and we had a power outage in Bend.
Yeah, we did.
Which shut down the session that I was planning to go to. So I just went in there anyway. Two authors, one of them was from DC. I don't know where the other guy is from, but they'd flown in just for this 1 hour thing and they got canceled. So they sat right here and Tyler and I got to talk to these high priced consultants for an hour, which was priceless, really, just to pick their brains about
And
it.
what was it on?
Short-term rentals.
Oh,
So they've written a book, which basically baselined every short-term rental ordinance in the country. All the variations and things from the most to the least. And so I think you're gonna get a copy for the city, and I'm probably gonna get one for me and just mark it up so that we can put together a proposal. And then the short-term or short-term rental ordinance toolkit. So step by step, what do you gotta think about? What do you gotta do? That was for me, one of the pluses of the conference was hopefully, because we've talked about, I think most people want to do something. We don't know what it is. I don't even know what all the parameters are. They brought up things that I hadn't even thought about, in terms of what you may want to think about or restrict. So I think it will give us a toolkit to come back to an actual work session, one where we're working and not people are talking at us. And maybe we can come up with some ideas where we might move forward with something reasonable. One of the interesting things is that they partnered with a company that provides the service. They can they search 80 different sites, and so in near real time they can go out and tell you how many Airbnbs do you actually, or how many short-term rentals do you actually have in your area. And I'm trying to remember the exact, it was Gold Beach, and I think they thought they had 60, and they ran the report for them. They said you have 200 in your city limits. So that's, 140 they didn't even know about that they were able to find. They also provide the service for the billing, the licensing, and everything else. So if we wanted to go after short-term rentals and we don't want to add staff or do anything, there's at least one solution out there that's turnkey, do the whole work for you. Take, their 25-30% off the top, and you pocket the rest. So to me, that's viable. I'm not for adding a whole lot of staff, so it's exciting to find there's at least one option. That means there's probably more, so we can look at it. So that was exciting. Equally exciting was a group of a session that was focused on faster, cheaper infrastructure, specifically for wastewater. So I thought, well, maybe I should go to that one, seeing how we have an unaffordable problem. And it was interesting. It's a set of technologies that basically, to simplify it. Now, I will say before preface this whole thing, Jenny's like, Don, they're just trying to sell you stuff. Quit listening. She may be right. Okay, so with that, I'm not a sewer engineer, but what they do is they use a combination of like a septic tank to filter out the solids, and then they do a pumped effluent. So, so what used to be a gravity feed, you know, your typical 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, depending on what you're draining from, you can now pump it in a 2-inch pressurized line, which doesn't get any inflow. And you can pressurize it uphill, downhill, whatever. You can, it struck me as interesting because I asked the guys, like, because we just had the guy in here the other day talking about, can we get his manufacturing facility in here?
There's a lot of other ideas out there.
Yeah, well, maybe so, but it's interesting to me that I hadn't heard this one. And so when I haven't heard one,
Sure.
then it piques my interest and I drill in further. And it's like, well, could we use this to maybe reduce the impact, the ERU impact of like a big box Costco or something else going in from 40 ERUs down to, I don't know. And the answer is yes. Usually they do turnkey. Their sweet spot is solving problems for smaller communities that have real strong environmental problems. But it could fit as a hybrid or maybe a temporary stopgap or maybe even a permanent just way to bifurcate so that you have new systems, new growth going on, once technology and our $30 million investment staying longer on that technology. So I'm excited about it. I'm going to push hard for an actual evaluation. I mean, Jenny's, you kind of skipped that whole thing in your report too, by the way.
I did.
Yeah. So Jenny going on the way out, I'll look to Stantec to really incorporate that as one of the alternatives that we're looking at before we finalize that plan. So anyway, that was a lot. And I had one ask for you going into our November thing that we tabled for the police staffing. I'd like to understand where we are on our remaining contingency spends, because every account has a contingency. We have 6, at that point, we'll have 7 months left in the biennium. It'd be nice to know where we are, to know what our real cushion is, because we talk about that contingency, that is one of our contingency. So anyway, that's it. That's a lot. That's way more for me than I heard.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Appreciate it. Appreciate your research. Kathleen.
First of all, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the candidate forum. That was really helpful to meet so many people and hear ideas from everybody. And I think it gave folks a good idea of what the choices are. And it was just really nice. It was well done. DJ was the moderator and he did a great job. And the group that put together the questions and all that, Lacey Renard and her team did a lot of work and put a lot of time into it. So really appreciate that. I think the community was well served by that. I will kind of make a little bit of an announcement. I have been named to be on the Recreation Trails Program Grant Committee for the state. And that is, we've gone after recreation. I've gone after a couple of them in the past and gotten, I think, I got both of them that I went after. They give out grants for the recreation trails. And as part of that, you get to go out and a couple times a year, do tours. And I went to Post Canyon in Hood River recently and was over by the Family Man staging area. And I always thought, I always wanted to get out to Post Canyon, but for whatever reason, I never did. And honestly, I think I kind of didn't try because some of these mountain bike areas are honestly, all black diamond, and I'm not going to risk breaking a hip on something like that. I like to kind of stay on the ground more than in the air. So, but I got over there and it was just amazing. And they had beginner, intermediate, and advanced trails. And on a very small area, they had done, gosh, I don't know how many miles of trails. It was like sort of like spaghetti almost, but it was just an amazing thing, and they get just hundreds of people. They have a user fee there. It was just really impressive. They get a huge amount of tourism from it. I forget how many people they said that visited there. But it was impressive, and it's just nice to see that. So I'm excited about that. We also went to Gateway Green and saw what's going on there for a pump track and mountain bike trails there at the little Gateway Greens, that section of land between 84, 205 and the railroad tracks. And they've done quite a bit of new work in there, also accessing it. So yeah, that I'll be looking at grants that people from the state are asking for and working. I'm the hiking representative. There's, gosh, I want to say there's like at least 12 people on the grant committee, you know, equestrian, OHV, you know, mountain biking, all that. It has been neat to kind of hear about all the different small towns like Oak Ridge and stuff, and what they're doing to bring tourism to their community with recreation trails. So I'm excited. I love learning about the new technology and what people are doing. So as exciting as this group is, that's kind of where my passion is. And it does, obviously, if Sandy puts a project forward, I would have to recuse myself, and that's okay. But it's also just helpful to kind of know what's going on and bring those ideas back to us. I had one other thing, and I can't think of it. Can you give me a red check?
You think of it?
Thanks.
All right. So-
Poor
Oh, yeah,
Rich, too.
Rich
It's
is
one-
right
it's
here.
one
Yeah,
AM
Rich,
where he's
please,
at.
please come in, Rich, and when you're done, feel free to log off.
I'm just here. I'm gonna be. I've hung on this long. I might as well hear all the other reports. So I look forward to that. I don't really have a whole lot. I again really want to say thank you to, if they're still in the room, to everyone that applied for that council seat spot. I heard a lot of great ideas and a lot of thoughts that I hope they continue to have that desire to be involved in the city and serve on some of our advisory boards. That's it. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your commitment this evening to our council and to our community, Rich. And it's not always easy when we have work obligations, so appreciate it.
I remember what I was gonna say. I was just gonna say that, yeah, I echoed what Rich said, but I think it's, I'm excited to kind of maybe enlist some of those folks that, you know, have such a passion and interest in helping serve Sandy, see if they're interested in some of these open positions on our boards.
Definitely, I'll second that. Lori.
Yeah, super excited for Cedar Park. What is that, weekend after
March
next?
2nd.
Yeah, so I was trying to remember which Saturday. So that's gonna be fantastic, super excited for our community, think there'll be a huge turnout. A lot of people are very excited about it. On your wastewater, something
Yeah.
else for you to think about,
Okay.
because I've been doing a lot of wastewater research. One of the things that they do in some other states is when a new development goes in, they have to do their own wastewater treatment plan.
Yeah,
And they use that water then to irrigate their lawns.
yeah,
Wouldn't that be cool?
yeah, this
So
system
there's some
would
really cool stuff out
promote
there.
that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, other than that, it's late where Rich is at, and I don't really have a whole lot else. Thank you to everybody that interviewed.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, I didn't have any meetings myself, so I just like to say thank you to everybody that showed up to interview for the open city council spot. And it's great to see 5 people show up for that. It was good. And I'll defer the rest of my time, so Rich, you know, bet.
Definitely. Just a couple quick things. One, as been mentioned, the base camp grand opening on November 2nd. It's not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after. Hopefully everybody can be part of that. And
Do we have a role or just show up?
I think just show up. However, what's the name of the park contractor that we're working with? Oh, Hanson. Yeah, they're gonna be kind of running around with a video camera and different things, kind of chronicling the day and the grand opening. So definitely may want to keep an eye out for that and give different testimonials as to, because what they want to hear why we did this is community, as elected leaders, you know, for the tourism and for our community and for the kids and all that. So it should be a really special day. I got a picture I'll try to send around to everybody. I know probably Tyler and Don saw it as well, but at their booth, they had us on display and had a picture of the park and promoting the grand opening. So that was super cool. Speaking of LOC, so I had a chance to go to their legislative forum session on what they're going to advocate for. So it's infrastructure. This time it's going to be transportation infrastructure. It's going to be the kind of the big thing that's coming out of there. I feel so bad. They have their new person that does government relations. She's been for water and wastewater, has been there for a month and a half. And, she comes in, she says, the big talk is getting out of the Christmas tree bill at the end of the year and trying to get, into a statewide solution. And I say, 6 years, we've been saying that since year one, like, are we gonna do that? So there's still talk and effort. I don't know how much momentum, but I bring that up just to say, like, Sandy really needs a seat at the table on that committee for like LOC, right? Because when they're talking housing and infrastructure, like nobody other than Sandy and a handful of communities know it right now. But if, when I say we need, what we really need to do is fix that 3 basin rule. Well, then you get people that kind of look at you and put their eyebrow up. Why would you say something like that? And so just having that voice at the table, because LOC then has an expanded voice for communities and stuff with what we're advocating for, I think it's going to be important. Something that was a big no. And I wrote down the quote, I sent it to Tyler and Dawn. They said, only big problems at the legislature find solutions. Right. Only big problems.
have a big problem.
Find
Now we gotta make it
solutions.
bigger.
But if you have a big problem, you gotta find attention to it and make it a bigger problem to be able to find that kind of attention and solution. So just something to think about. Speaking of short-term rentals, I just want to talk about the transient lodging tax.
Yep.
That's one of the things that's going to be a big thing push for. Right now, as we know, a lot of that can go rightfully so towards tourism type activities, DMOs, funding the chamber, those things. They want to extend that to infrastructure because obviously a hotel or whatever comes in. And they're talking wastewater, water. I think they're going to have a lot of battles with lodging, restaurant lodging associations, some with how to spend those. My recommendation, I think we should continue to advocate for is when we talk city services, we should talk law enforcement too. We just got into a conversation about funding our law enforcement department. We've got project turnkeys going on in our hotels. We've got graffiti, low crimes. We have a lot of law enforcement having to go out, transient lodging dollars to be able to go towards law enforcement activities.
That would be great.
Just want to say rural communities, North Marion County did economic development collaboration. It's awesome. Learn there, we're doing a lot of our things right. Clean infrastructure, marquee parks, but consider some of the economic impact of that wastewater plant as we move forward, as I know that we are. Clackamas County, there's some articles that I haven't had time to read, that they have some big UGB expansion question for us cities that they're looking into different thing in their UGB areas. And so would like our city staff to maybe do some outreach and research and let us know. Yeah, exactly what they're asking us so that we can participate in that. Speaking of UGB, I participate in the East Side Leaders Group. We have Vince Jones Dixon, who's the Multnomah County Commissioner-elect that's on there, City of Gresham, all East County communities. Let's talk at the last meeting, last couple meetings is we've got to get housing going. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about housing coming, but then there's being forced on us cities and we have consternation about it. And so we're going to do a housing summit a couple of months after the election when we get all of our elected kind of leaders in there. I pushed hard and they created the track just for me. I think I get to lead it on infrastructure and the 3 basin rule. So, because I said, if there's going to be housing talk, we need that. And I think what's in it for us as a city, it's an opportunity to get into the room with our East County peers, complain a little bit, but also come up with some things maybe that we like. But then importantly, here's our challenges. It's wastewater. Oh, by the way, Gresham, you're in the room. We've got some solutions that go that way. But we also, anyone else have 3 basin rule problems?
This is how we make the problem bigger, though.
That's how we make the problem bigger. So I'll keep everybody comprised on that. Wanted to thank the folks that put applications ahead for the city council this evening. And then on the police funding issue, please reach out to me individually as counselors. What I'm looking to do is obviously we're going to have this discussion at the next meeting for this short-term deal, but as what's been talked about tonight is that whether it's the public safety fee or alternatives or federal COP grants or whatever it may be, we have a funding issue that we need to figure out for long-term for our council. We have time before February, March when our budget committee meets. My hope would be for this committee made up of a variety of different council members and staff to be able to provide some recommendations for that budget committee. So if you're interested in serving on such an ad hoc committee, please reach out to me as a counselor. With that, thanks, Lane.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Sheldon has his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, please. Yes.
Yeah, you can put my name down for that committee, please.
Awesome. Yeah.
The second thing is, in the filling of Carl's seat tonight, just kind of reminded me, and I meant to bring it up earlier. Are we gonna do a recognition thing for him? I know there's a lot going on, but I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in all the other chatter.
Yes, we have, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send out an email to the council tomorrow with what we have in mind for that, so you're all updated, but I don't want to spill the beans in
We're trying
case
to make
Councilor
this
Exner is watching this.
You would.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, I'll follow up with you
It's gonna
tomorrow.
be a surprise, Carl.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Go to bed, Rich. The bar's closed.